All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diamond Report Live. We are back again. I feel like I say this every week, but we are. And I think I do say it every week. 9:10 p.m. on Father's Day, June 21st, also the summer solstice, first day of summer. So, hello and welcome to all. June 21st, 2026, 9:11 p.m. actually. So, yes, happy Father's Day. Hope it was a good one for you dads out there. We had a good get-together here at our house. Had some family over and did homemade pizzas. It was actually really good. Kind of new and different. We don't normally do that type of thing. But, yeah, it was a lot of fun and had a good family gathering. So hope you guys did as well. And if not, then I pray whatever the next one is, it's a great one. So anyway, hello and welcome. Lots of folks in chatting up a storm. So I wanted to read this right off the bat. I thought that was pretty cool. This is on HalTurnerRadioShow.com. A father's heart is bigger than the ocean and stronger than the mountains. They really are God's best creations. Happy Father's Day to all. I'm not sure what that means. What is really God's best creations? Not the mountains and the ocean, but fathers? I don't know. They are pretty darn good. If you had a good one. And, of course, many of them are not. So, anyway, yes. And I also wanted to point out and just briefly mention that Hal Turner and I have reconciled our differences that we had before that I may have mentioned, I don't know, a time or two, at least in part. And I will now be allowed to report some of the stuff that he talks about as well on his site. So I'm happy for that. And I'm no longer blocked from using his site. So we did get everything worked out, and I think that everything will hopefully be just fine at this point. So I'm happy to have Hal back as a trusted source here on the Diamond Report, just because he has some really, really good information. And if Hal happens to be listening tonight, I did send him the link. Happy Father's Day, Hal. And I wanted to point folks to this particular article. Now, he does have some free articles on his site, but obviously people go to his site to access the really good information that is by subscription only. And you can subscribe here on his site as well. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Okay, here we go. So this particular article is on the free side of his site, but it's available to anyone who wants to go check it out. But yeah, I do definitely recommend listening to his radio show. It's all right here. You can find it. It's not a podcast. It's a actual radio show. And the different frequencies are right here listed. And of course, if you're a subscriber, you can listen via the website too. So Senator Lindsey Graham reveals what's coming. Take the Strait of Hormuz by force, says the guy who's never been involved in any military actions ever and is not married and does not have kids. So yes, easy for him to say. The regular Sunday morning news talk shows on national television here in the United States seem to reveal what the immediate future holds. The United States taking the Strait of Hormuz by force, obliterating Iran. Do you think that'll happen? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we have the stamina is not the right word. The craziness to do that. But we'll see. Lindsey Graham is pretty darn crazy. Anyone who thought things in the Middle East were calming down and diplomacy could win the day were rudely awakened today by the reality of psychopathic thoughts prevailing in the elected apparent sociopaths in Washington, D.C. Lindsey Graham, appearing on CBS News Face the Nation, said this, quote, I spent 4.5 hours with President Trump on Friday. Here's what I think will happen next. If this deal fails, President Trump is going to take the Strait of Hormuz over by force. We'll charge a fee for all those who go through to pay for the operation. If Iran contests control of the Strait of Hormuz by the United States, we'll obliterate them. End quote. And here's the video here. Please be sure to listen for the prominently stated other goal to understand who is actually causing this. I think we know who that might be. And it's not the red, white, and blue. It's just the white and blue, if you know what I mean. So yes, the Abraham Accords as well. So anyway, there's further information here on Hal's site and some commentary, I'm sure, as well as looks like another video embedded here. So I don't know. I don't particularly see this happening, but who knows? I mean, anything is really possible, I think, at this point. So yes, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? But it does appear that things are falling apart faster than they can try and piece it back together. So I don't know. Anyway, we will address a few more details on the whole Iran, the MOU. We'll talk about that as we go tonight, so stay tuned for that. We've got lots of stuff to look at tonight, so we'll just see how much we can fit in, as we normally do. We'll probably run, I would say, 2.5 to 3 hours, so sit back and we will address things as we bring them up. And oftentimes I'm researching these things and they come across sort of random. Some things I do try and keep in certain order, but they are pretty much random. So that's just because that's just kind of how I happen across all the news. So if that's difficult to deal with, then my apologies. But I do try and organize certain things, but oftentimes it is seemingly a bit random. There's always a method to my madness, though. All right, G. Edward Griffin's site, needtoknow.news. Candace Owens investigates Trump assassination attempt and possible link to Charlie Kirk. So this is dated the 17th. So yeah, it was from a few days ago on Candace's show, but I still wanted to bring people's attention to it just because I think her information here is really good. The show's embedded here on this page. And if you're not familiar with what's going on, let's take a look at this. Candace Owens drops a bombshell. PETN, an explosive that was used in Israel's pager attacks, remember that, in Lebanon, could be linked to the mysterious death of Mark Liddy in Pennsylvania in 2022, the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump, and perhaps even Charlie Kirk's murder. Mark Liddy, L-I-T-I, Mark Liddy died in 2022 due to an explosion during a burn barrel fire. Liddy worked for Surefire Wireline LLC that uses PETN, P-E-T-N. It has been claimed that Liddy told his friend Corey Comparatori, may remember that name, that he stole the explosive from his employer. Corey Comparatori was shot and killed during the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Candace criticized the non-investigation of the Butler assassination attempt that resulted in the killing of Corey Comparatori after his family was upgraded to seats closer to Trump and the stage. So do you suppose the assassination of Mr. Corey here was not an accident at all, but in fact, perhaps he was targeted? Kind of what it sounds like, at least when you look at these other details. Investigative journalist Candace dropped a whopper of a podcast Monday, continuing to look into the death of her friend Charlie Kirk, exploring a theory that Kirk may have been killed by an explosive used in Israel's pager attack on Hezbollah. So if that's the case, if that is what happened, obviously, and then Israel was the first of anyone to come out and say, we didn't do it, and really got everyone's suspicions right off the bat set up to believe that, in fact, they probably did do it, just because they were the first ones out there saying they didn't do it. So what I was going to look for here is something that I'm not sure was touched on, but you guys might remember right after Charlie was shot, there was a explosion at a Tennessee plant that dealt with explosives, which, from the looks of it, at the time, was highly suspicious, and the entire plant was obliterated. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but I remember reporting on that. I don't see anything mentioned here in this article about it, but as I was reading this intro piece, I remembered that perhaps there's a connection to the plant in Tennessee exploding right after Charlie was gunned down. I don't know. Anyway, pretty interesting, and yes, I think Candace is doing the best work out there as far as trying to actually figure out what happened to Charlie Kirk, because Lord knows the FBI has completely dropped the ball, and whatever they come up with will be a complete and total lie. Guaranteed. There's really no question. The official story will be the official lie, just like everything else we're fed. All right, and then next, needtoknow.news article. The CDC, Center for Disease Creation, awards Pfizer $1.24 billion for updated COVID vaccines. I mentioned this last week, actually. President Trump's administration has betrayed Americans yet again, as the federal government has just awarded Pfizer new COVID vaccine contracts worth $1.24 billion, with $735 million to be applied towards pediatric vaccines. Vaccines are in quotes here. Yeah. The Trump administration has awarded the infamous corporation about $7.34 billion in federal contract capacity since March 23, 2025. HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. has failed to act. Yeah, I don't know how much, and that's true. I'm not sure how much of that's his fault versus his hands being tied. I don't know. I'm not making excuses for him. I just don't know. Public demand has collapsed for shots associated with some of the gravest harms, such as, you know what, all those different, 2,000 some side effects or something? Cancer, myocarditis, premature death, strokes, and everything else. So anyway, we got a video here embedded. RFK Jr. knows the COVID death jabs constitute mass murder. He calls them mass murder verbatim. Now he's in a position of authority where he can halt them unilaterally without any action from the FDA. He must stop the mass murder Trump started. The Trump administration just gave Pfizer another major payday. For many in the MAHA movement, it's another blow. They hoped Trump and Kennedy's HHS would confront the devastating carnage of the COVID VAXX policy. Instead, the federal government just awarded Pfizer a new COVID VAXX contract worth about $1.24 billion. Yeah, it's just another kick in the face, huh? Brian Hooker, the chief scientific officer at the CHD, Children's Health Defense, a nonprofit founded by Kennedy, put the objection bluntly. He called it a $1.24 billion for what is essentially a cold in minor children. Yeah, if that. So anyway, more of the same. And Trump and company just keep funding it. Well, one of the big stories for this week was this one. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this or have looked into it at all. The RAPE gang inquiry report reveals evidence that 250,000 white British girls were RAPED'd. 250,000 white British girls. And that, of course, is just the number that they're reporting. Grok's summary of the RAPE gang inquiry report stated that it details systematic child sexual exploitation by predominantly Pakistani heritage Muslim men targeting vulnerable white British girls. Key findings: 250,000 victims estimated since the 1950s, 87 to 95% perpetrators Muslim in analyzed cases, grooming via drugs, alcohol, taxis, gang RAPESs, trafficking, blackmail, and racial and religious abuse. Massive institutional failures by police, councils, and services driven by political correctness and fear of racism accusations. Ethnicity/religion data, often unrecorded. Links to clan honor codes and Islamic theological attitudes toward non-Muslims cited. Harrowing survivor testimonies included. Conclusions: national scandal and state betrayal enabled by multiculturalism. Recommendations: mandatory ethnicity recording in crime data, deportations of foreign offenders, accountability, and reforms. So there's a link here to the actual PDF of the RAPE gang inquiry report. And I have not read it, although I know of some people that have, and they said it is incredibly detailed and dark. UK MP, Minister of Parliament, Rupert Lowe, initiated the inquiry because the British establishment refused to acknowledge the RAPE and torture of 250,000 white British girls. Rupert Lowe said the 16-month investigation that resulted in the 200-page report was privately funded by 20,000 concerned citizens and was spearheaded by attorney Graham Smith. So that's how it came to be. Lowe said that private prosecutions will be pursued and that authorities who failed the young girls will be publicly named. Mr. Lowe blamed the failure to protect the girls on government ministers, the civil service, local government, police, social services, judges, NHS, National Health Services, and the media. So that's pretty much everybody in charge. They forgot the king. I think he has a hand in it too. Yeah, so this is the guy here. This is Rupert Lowe. Yeah, and then here's where people are talking about it. Oh my God, children were being RAPED'd by dogs. UK police officers were participating in what is known as cop nights, where they would RAPE little children as young as 11, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of detail, obviously, in this report, and it is not for the faint of heart, for sure. Quite a bit of info here on this article, linking to the Expose News, which is a different website. And this is the actual report. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I will paste the link in here so you can see that we will include this link to this PDF, 219 pages, in the Substack post that I put out. So important to see for sure. Even if you don't read the details, you can bet that, heads should roll on this, but I don't know that they will. This is just some highlighted pieces here that were pretty important. The following week, her daughter attempted suicide by overdose. She went missing one final time and was found in a field with injuries to her head and ear, a severed finger, and numerous cuts and bruises. Following this, she wrote a post on Facebook alleging that she had been a victim of grooming gangs. The post went viral. Within half an hour, the police arrested her, and she was sent to prison. They arrested her because she accused the Muslims of having grooming gangs. They arrested her, the victim. Following her daughter's conviction, the family experienced sustained harassment and intimidation, particularly from one Muslim man. Sally reports repeated failures by the police to protect them. She believes her daughter was a vulnerable young woman who lied at times, but was nevertheless groomed. The scale of the crimes committed is staggering, and is previously established that at the very least 250,000 young white girls have been subjected to repeated RAPE, gang RAPE, trafficking, torture, pregnancy, forced Islamic conversion, and lifelong trauma. The true number is probably higher. The perpetrators bear primary responsibility, yet the institution failures that while Sir Keir Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions, so this is before he was Prime Minister, it has been reported that 13,000 suspected RAPE gang members and pedophiles were let off with warning letters. Warning letters. Yeah. Anyway, there's a little bit more here on this screenshot, but I just wanted to read some of that just because you can imagine how bad this is. And now there's a lot of talk that Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, could step down tomorrow, as early as tomorrow. So we shall see. I'm not so sure that that'll happen, but a lot of people are saying he's on the way out. We're going to look at that a little bit closer as well tonight. And speaking of cultural enrichment, how about this one? Stranger throws 3-year-old boy into the zoo crocodile pit before heroic rescue in the UK. When they say stranger, you know what they mean, don't you? Of course. And illegal. A zoo owner's wife jumped into a crocodile enclosure to try to save a seriously injured 3-year-old boy who was allegedly thrown in by a stranger. I think there's video of that happening. Shocking incident unfolded at Johnson's of Oldhurst Zoo in Huntingdon, where a 3-year-old boy was left fighting for his life after allegedly being thrown into a crocodile enclosure by a stranger. According to the Independent, the child suffered serious injuries in the attack, prompting an immediate and heroic response from Tracy Johnson, the wife of the zoo's owner, who reportedly leapt into the enclosure to rescue him. Wow. Police confirmed that the boy was rushed to the hospital in Cambridge, where he remains in critical but stable condition. A 30-year-old man from Norfolk has since been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Yes, and you can bet what his skin color and nation of origin is from. Spokesperson for Johnson's of Oldhurst told BBC that the zoo's thoughts and prayers are with the boy and his family. So anyway, yeah, more cultural enrichment, as they say. They just do nothing but wonderful things when you let all of these illegals come into your country. We are all so blessed by that, aren't we? Speaking of British prime ministers, well, a former UK prime minister admits mass migration is being weaponized to undermine Western civilization. So, yes, no kidding. Following the near beheading of Stephen Ogilvy that left him blinded by a Sudanese migrant, riots ensued in Belfast. 2 more violent attacks, including a murder by migrants or with migrant backgrounds, have since taken place in the UK, leading to former Conservative Prime Minister Liz Truss to link mass migration to the destruction of the family, the nation-state, and Western civilization. UK leaders have consistently denied the problem of migrant crime and have censored, suppressed, and imprisoned citizens who expose it. Mass migration has delivered neither safety nor prosperity for the native population in many ways. It has delivered parallel societies, imported crime patterns, and a political class more interested in silencing critics than protecting citizens. Well, yeah, Liz Truss was, she was not the prime minister for very long. I think it was really just a matter of a few weeks or maybe a few months, and she was out. But she seems to be telling the truth at least a little bit in this, because yes, of course it's being weaponized. That's what they do. But it's been part of the plan for many decades. They didn't just come up with it. All right, and then we mentioned the LA mayor race several times on the show. Los Angeles anti-corruption mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt lost his election, then his business caught on fire. I'm sure that's a total coincidence. California allows mail-in voting and ballot harvesting in its elections. Election day was on June 2nd, but the state will continue counting votes, mostly mail-in votes, through July 3rd. So they still have several weeks to count votes. Again, it's election season in California. Reality TV star Spencer Pratt's home burned to the ground in the Palisades fire last year, spurring him to run for mayor of Los Angeles against the current mayor, Karen Bass, who shared much of the blame for the fire. Spencer Pratt ran on a platform of reforming the corrupt local government. He was popular with voters and online. He was second to Bass, but he had a solid lead over the third-place contender named Nithya Raman until mail-in votes were added after Election Day. Ballots are still being counted, but the media says he's out of the race. Isn't that nice? Pratt is now vowing to release a damning video that will force one of the other contestants to resign. Doesn't say who, though. Recently, there was a fire at Mr. Pratt's business, which is a shop in the Palisades that sells crystals, that's now being investigated for arson. So that's pretty convenient too, huh? They're crooked. Spencer Pratt's bruising mayoral loss raises election integrity concerns, as it should. Yeah, the whole thing just stinks to high heaven, as they say. But, of course, I think pretty much everyone knew he was going to be cheated out of it. That's what they do. Says Spencer Pratt's concession speech was deemed aggressive by the media. He claimed that he has damning video evidence of one of the candidates, either Karen Bass or Nithya Raman, that will force them to resign. He says he will release it after the general election. Well, that won't be until the 4th of July. And then nobody will be paying attention, most likely. But yeah, it will be kind of interesting to see if anything comes of that. So, anyway, he's ran a pretty interesting campaign, and everybody said that they thought he did well, and his ads were really good, and he made a lot of sense when he was out there talking. But of course, they were going to cheat him out of it, and they did. At least so far. All right, and then I thought this was interesting, just because it's the first day of summer, and many of you guys will be out there in the ladies and guys will be out there in the sun. So this is further information of what we all know, but it's always good to see it in print and share it with others if you want. Study finds sunscreen linked to dramatic increase in risk of skin cancers. Cancers, plural. They mention basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. So the percentages go from 140% higher risk to 126% in a different cancer to 292% for melanoma, higher risk if you use sunscreen. But of course, that would be depending on the sunscreen, I'm sure. A UK biobank analysis of 470,000 people found sunscreen users faced significantly higher risk of melanoma by 292%, basal cell carcinoma, which is BCC, 140% higher, and squamous cell carcinoma, 126% higher. This is what happens when you slather rapidly absorbed hormone-disrupting chemicals all over your body while blocking vitamin D, one of the body's key defenses against cancer. Yes, I've also heard that eating clean helps you not burn while you're out there. And there, I'm sure, are many other things you can do. Dramatic cancer signals remained even after accounting for major skin cancer risk factors like age, sex, skin type, tanning ability, sunburn history, sun lamp use, and time spent outdoors. So this is from Nicholas Hulsher from his Substack and on his X. Sunscreen linked to dramatically higher risks of multiple skin cancers. What they don't say is what sunscreen it is, because they're certainly not all created the same. 6 of the most common chemical sunscreen ingredients are oxybenzone, avobenzone, octocrylene, homosalate, octisalate, and others. So if you see those ingredients in the sunscreen you're using, just watch out. Good chance it could be adding to the risk of getting skin cancer. Anyway, best not to use that stuff if you can help it. That is certainly for sure. All right, a couple of articles from technocracy.news. Peter Thiel's super secret network dialogue exposed by data leak. Yeah, the network is called Dialogue. Peter Thiel loves to operate in secrecy, no prying eyes. Signed non-disclosure agreements, sworn to secrecy, no kiss and tell. So what would Senator Ted Cruz be doing meeting with the highest-ranking arch technocrat in the universe? It is the regulator and the regulated, the senator and the surveillance vendor, the elected and the unelected, discovering they were never on opposite sides of the table at all. Yeah, isn't that nice? 20 years ago, tech billionaire Peter Thiel and his associate founded Dialogue, an invitation-only network of elites from business, academia, and politics. Dialogue was so secretive that it never had a public-facing website, and its participants were never identified to outsiders until now. Data related to Dialogue, which Thiel created with the Silicon Valley investor Orrin Hoffman, has been exposed online, opening a window onto the influential but discreet organization. The data provided to Straight Arrow by security researcher reveals the names of current and former members, their personal email addresses and telephone numbers, as well as previous private details about the organization's off-the-record discussions, including the event scheduled for August in Dublin, Ireland. Dialogue has often been compared in the media to the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group, a private forum established in 1954 to foster conversations between Europe and North American leaders. It, too, is shrouded in secrecy. Yeah, but the word's out on that, at least somewhat. It is not clear from the leaked data whether Dialogue engages in political activity, although the organization purchased land outside Washington last year for a permanent campus. Thiel, a co-founder of PayPal and the data mining firm Palantir, is a prominent supporter of J.D. Vance and has said that he voted for President Donald Trump and donated money toward construction of Trump's White House ballroom. Thiel donated more than $1.7 million to candidates and political parties in 2024, according to federal data. He identifies as a libertarian and once said, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Spokesperson for Thiel did not respond Tuesday to an email from Straight Arrow asking for comment about Dialogue. So anyway, I didn't know if you guys knew about Dialogue, but I thought that was kind of creepy. But yet the whole thing with him, and he always wants to talk about the Antichrist and all of that. Kind of odd that he's starting this secretive organization called Dialogue. Anyway, I guess if I know about it, it's certainly not very secretive. Iran, the goal was always economic reintegration, not containment. So this one is currently the full article on technocracy.news. Note, it says in the plainest terms, economic reintegration is the process of bringing a country that has been cut off from the global economy back into it, restoring its access to trade, capital, banking, investment, and the financial systems that let money and goods cross its borders. This is Iran in 2026. I have said countless times that technocracy moves on infrastructure, not outright confrontation. The Iran war is a case in point. The American people watched a war and waited for a victory. They're still waiting because the thing that they were promised and the thing that was delivered are not the same thing. They expected containment. They expected an adversary beaten back, a nuclear program dismantled, a hostile regime made smaller. What they received was a development contract. The Iran settlement is not the end of the confrontation, it's the beginning of an economic reintegration. And the men who built it were not trying to contain Iran at all. Look first at who negotiated it. Not the Secretary of State, not the National Security Council. The two principals who carried the final framework were Steve Witkoff, and who is the special envoy to the Middle East, and Jared Kushner, who holds no office in the United States government whatsoever. Both are real estate developers. The deal that reopened the Strait of Hormuz, lifted the blockade, and put $300 billion on the table, some of this is already old news, to rebuild Iran was shaped by two men whose entire professional foundation is the financing and construction of buildings. It shows. The agreement reads like a development deal because it was assembled by developers. That is not an insult. It's the key to the document. A diplomat sent to contain Iran writes, a deal full of restrictions, inspections, and walls. A developer sent to a country he sees it as undervalued writes a deal full of investment, access, and the removal of barriers to capital, like the removal of sanctions. The Witkoff and Kushner framework is the second kind of document. It's the center of gravity. It's not a list of things that Iran may not do. Its center of gravity is a $300 billion private investment vehicle to rebuild the country that the United States was bombing 4 months ago. Yeah. Anyway, that one is on technocracy.news. Next article is on Revolver. Send them back. Chants erupt in European Parliament. The Overton window was just kicked off of its hinges. Europe's elites made mass migration sound like some kind of unicorn utopia. It's not. Ordinary Euros watch their communities change, and not in a good way. Crime rose, assimilation failed, and national cultures and traditions disappeared, while globalist leaders kept saying the same tired lines about diversity, refugees, welcome, and progress. And God forbid you question the experiment because you'd be smeared as some backward, hateful extremist. Yeah, and also jailed. Forget that little detail. But as we all know, the diversity experiment failed miserably, and now voters across Europe are making their voices heard. Right-wing parties are blowing through elections, winning big. As a result, border enforcement is making a comeback. Being proud of your nation and your national identity is not racist, and the globalists who failed their countries and their people are being shoved back into a darker corner where they belong. And that's what makes this moment inside the European Parliament so incredibly stunning, a moment that has many doing double and triple takes. A chorus of "send them back" chants erupted after lawmakers passed the strictest migration law in EU history. Yeah, well, which brings to mind, at least to me, aren't they the ones that created the problem to begin with? So here's the audio from this. This is from the EU Parliament, who voted 418 to 218 to pass the strictest migration law in EU history. This is dated June 17th. Yeah, well, they were chanting, but again, aren't they the same people that made this all happen to begin with? That brought in all of the migrants? This clip went viral because a powerful people's chant broke out inside of one of Europe's most powerful institutions. The twisted ideas that global elites have spent over a decade implementing are finally coming crashing down. I don't know. I'm not sure I buy that, but anyway. That's what this article is talking about. This is on revolver.news. America's first report, FDA, the Fraud and Death Administration, spun autopsy results to downplay the COVID VAXX death in kids. Of course they did. That's what they do, lie. Career staff at the FDA spun the autopsy results of dead children to reduce the number of children suspected of dying from the CV19 VAXX. According to internal FDA emails released by Senator Ron Johnson, 2 former FDA officials and a forensic pathologist who investigated 2 of the deaths. Even after downplaying some of the previously suspected deaths, the FDA's Division of Pharmacovigilance recommended a change to the label of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines to warn the public about the risk of myocarditis with fatal outcomes, heart inflammation, and death, but that change never happened. Johnson released the new FDA emails in a June 16th letter demanding more information about a recent $1.24 billion purchase by the CDC for Pfizer vaccines, despite bipartisan concerns about their safety, which was one of the early stories that we reported on tonight. The FDA did not respond to requests for comment. Pfizer and Moderna did not respond to requests for comment. Why would they? They have the money. They're going to keep it. And why should they ever be held accountable to anyone ever for anything? They are above the law, quite literally. Shapiro and Levin are big mad over no forever war in Iran. Well, I don't know. They might still get their forever war. I'm not convinced that they won't, actually. But this article is saying President Trump is now taking fire from the crowd that never met a Middle East forever war that they didn't love and want to stretch into the next generation. That's right, where this Iran situation gets real tricky for a lot of America First voters. Many people on the right were rightfully skeptical of this war from the jump, and for good reason. Nobody voted for another Iraq. Nobody voted for American boots on the ground in another endless Middle Eastern bloodbath. We don't want to see U.S. troops dragged into conflict where the goalposts keep dancing around like a conga line and the exit ramp keeps disappearing. The goal for Trump was always crippling Iran's nuclear program. It was never about regime change. Yeah, this is according to this particular writer. I don't really buy that myself, but whatever. Even if that's what the neocons had hoped for, Trump hit Iran hard, made his point, avoided a long, drawn-out war, kept the U.S. economy steady and took the off-ramp before the neocons could turn this thing into another disaster. It's a very big difference from what we saw with the old Bush-era nation-building mess. See, I completely disagree with all this. This is the, I guess, the main writer here on Revolver. Doesn't say who wrote this. But, yeah, I totally agree. I totally disagree with what he's saying here. That's some huge assumptions, don't you think? But speaking on ramps, that is where people like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro are suddenly changing lanes. Their frustration over Trump's peace deal is that he didn't keep going and going and going. I don't know. I don't think we're out of it yet, personally. The moment Trump signs the Iran deal at the Palace of Versailles, the agreement was finalized during dinner hosted by Macron and his husband. So that's embedded in the page here. Mark Levin, who's infamous with his foam-at-the-mouth rants, is at it again. He's so desperate to keep this war going and risk tens of thousands of American lives that he's now demanding Congress, not the President of the United States, should decide when it's over. J.D. Vance responded to his dangerous rhetoric when he appeared on Megyn Kelly's podcast. Yeah, so anyway, the back and forth. J.D. Vance with Megyn Kelly, I guess. If someone's argument is, show me the details and prove this protects American interests, fine, fair enough. But if the position is basically keep bombing until Iran is rubble, then Vance is right to call it what it is, a pro-war scheme for endless conflict. And of course, right on cue, Israel First warrior Ben Shapiro also went on a rant. Ben's tantrum shows the same problem, but from a different angle. His concern is almost entirely about Israel's position and whether Israel's hands are tied. Keep in mind, when this war first started, these two warmongers were clapping like seals and claiming they were the voice of MAGA. Yeah, MAGA. I heard a really good alternative acronym for MAGA the other day. Miriam Adelson Governing America. Thought that was pretty much spot on. Miriam Adelson Governing America. MAGA. Turns out that was the actual real definition of it. Not Make America Great Again. Anyway, that one's on Revolver, and this one from Information Liberation. Mark Levin flying to Israel as Netanyahu reportedly seeks to leverage Levin to trash Trump's Iran deal. This is dated yesterday. So Mark Levin is on the job. Don't you worry. He will get us back into this war. He'll make sure the war will not end. Mark Levin told his audience on Friday he's taking a week-long trip to Israel to spend time with family and speak at an unnamed, quote, event. I wish he'd just stay. Wouldn't that be nice? As a joke, he said he's going to be meeting with Mossad, the IDF, and all the top government officials to share information. A joke. I imagine that's probably true. Should I joke, Mr. Producer, or will everybody go nuts? Levin said. So I'm going to be meeting with the Mossad and the IDF. I'm going to meet with all the top government officials and security committee. We're going to share information. They're going to tell me what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. That's probably not that far off. Then he said, of course, none of that is going to happen. Levin failed to mention he is going to the Israeli government-sponsored Jewish News Syndicate's International Policy Summit, which is being headlined by Bibi, as well as these other people, which I don't really know to me these other names. But anyway, other top officials in Israel. Embedded videos here. The trip comes as CNN reports Netanyahu is trying to leverage right-wing media figures, including pro-Israel podcaster Mark Levin, to lobby Trump to trash his MOU with Iran. Yeah, the old MOU, Information Liberation, which is a site that I used to mention quite a bit before. I just kind of got out of the habit of it. But they always have good information on their site, for sure. You guys may have heard about this reflecting pool. American Olympic canoeist was arrested for allegedly vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Yeah, it's all full of algae now. You can see the ducks swimming in it. Former U.S. Olympian was arrested for allegedly vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool in D.C. David Hearn, a three-time Olympic canoeist, was cycling past the monument on Friday when he said he stopped and noticed a piece of the pool's liner floating in the water. President Trump announced that many additional people have also been arrested in connection to the disgraceful vandalism. What these terrible vandals have done is a true affront to both Presidents George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and should be dealt with accordingly, Trump posted on Saturday on Truth Social. So this is the guy here, I guess. Former U.S. Olympian David Hearn was arrested for allegedly vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool. Luckily, he represents the United States whenever he's canoeing. Isn't that nice? Are they going to strip him of that, by the way, if he's found guilty? Trump claimed that the vandals poured destructive chemicals into the pool and then it would have to be drained so that the repairs could be made. The reflecting pool was never so beautiful as it was just 1 week ago, even going back to 1922 when it opened. We are very proud of what we've done with this magnificent structure, and we will get it repaired quickly to an equal level of beauty, Trump wrote. He blamed the vandals for the current dismal state of the reflecting pool, just weeks after a $14.8 million restoration project was completed. Now, why would you want to do that? He vowed to have the pool repaired as quickly as possible. Additionally, the grass at the National Mall was defaced afterwards with giant etchings of the numbers 8647. We mentioned that last week on the show. Because remember, I said you can barely read the numbers. They need to get better blades on their mowers or something. The numerical phrase came into prominence after former FBI Director James Comey posted a picture of the numbers written in seashells on Instagram in May of 2025. So this is the current version of the reflecting pool. It's all green and nasty. Hearn, who is 67, claimed to the Washington Post that he reached out and touched the detached piece and let it go after a worker told him to. He was then taken to custody by the park police. Video of the incident went viral, with Hearn shown looking bewildered as he's confronted by members of the National Guard and then put in cuffs by the U.S. Park Police. I didn't vandalize anything, he told the Washington Post. So this is the current state of it, I guess. You can see all the algae growing in the middle of it. He says, I didn't destroy or break or peel anything. By the time I realized what was going on, I was being put in handcuffs. So he's completely innocent. Says he competed in the whitewater slalom canoe in the Summer Olympics in 1992, 96, and 2000. He also won gold at 2 world championships in 85 and 95. And came away with silver medals 5 times. So he is a medalist, I guess. But it doesn't say he was trying to canoe in the reflecting pool. So I don't know. The whole thing is very strange. Yeah. Very, very weird. Okay, and then we've got a few X posts here I wanted to take a look at. These are probably somewhat random, but oh yeah, this is a immigrant type of post. Again, you could say it is more cultural enrichment. 46 million Muslims now live in Europe. In 2000, there were fewer than 500,000. Now they have 46 million. 26 years later, 45.5 million more Muslims. Europe is being conquered. It's already happened. You are and have in many places been ethnically replaced. This is called genocide. The EU and European governments have completely destroyed an entire civilization. They must be held accountable. This is treason and the worst treason recorded in all of European history. Resist, reclaim, and restore your homelands. I wish that were the case. I don't know. I'm not so sure that they will be able to do that, because keep in mind they've all been disarmed. So, I don't know. They do have pitchforks and torches, though, so that we have to break those out. And maybe some nooses as well. Get rid of a few people at the top who have been doing these things to them. NSA is saying Mythos, as in an AI, it was an Anthropic AI, Mythos, in hours, broke into nearly all of their classified systems. Yeah. Encryption was a potent technology, but narrow in its application. AI is far more powerful and versatile. On June 11th, Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said that General Joshua Rudd, who leads the National Security Agency and the Pentagon's Cyber Command, told him that Mythos, the AI, broke into almost all of our classified systems, not in weeks, but in hours. Yeah. So let's just put AI in charge of everything. Wouldn't that be good? So, and I guess that's a selling point if you're Anthropic. Oh, yeah. And then this one, this is worth watching the video clip of as well. How about this one? And we've reported on various things like this. It says, OMG, employees at a Starbucks in St. Louis were fired after they fought off robbers who assaulted them. Both robbers were later convicted and jailed. Why were these employees fired at Starbucks? So they're tagging him here, but probably not going to have any answers from Starbucks.
It was a Sunday in December 2023, the middle of the afternoon. Michael Harris was working drive-thru.
We were just going about our normal day. Two robbers walked in.
One suspect walks behind the counter and shoves a female worker to the ground.
I was scared, but also just calm at the moment because I was just like, whatever we could do to just get them out of here would be perfect.
The robbers demand money and strike Harris with a gun.
After that point, like when my vision went black, I was like, I'm about to get shot.
A customer in the drive-thru sees what's happening and reverses her car.
It was definitely a life or death situation in my eyes.
Another worker, also fired after this, saw a suspect lower his gun, so he shoved him and noticed the gun was fake.
The trigger broke off when they hit him with it. My coworker announced that it was a fake gun, like right as he got it off of them. And that's when we jumped and like started to fight them a little bit more.
But now in prison after robbery convictions. Harris says he got a call from corporate.
They said, this is Starbucks. We are terminating you effective immediately.
He hired attorney Ryan Krupp.
You have the right to self-preservation. You have the right to make sure that you and your family are not going to be physically harmed. Full stop.
Krupp says Starbucks' response could lead to a future deadly outcome.
All it's going to do is dissuade people potentially from protecting their own lives when they may need it the most. And that is not a world that we can live in.
Yeah, well, that could be a problem, huh? So I guess if you want to stay safe and not get shot and killed, or I guess potentially fired, don't work at Starbucks. That is an ex-post by Libs of TikTok, which is a good account. So yeah, very strange, huh? Breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. You can't stand up for yourself if you're being robbed, beaten up. I guess if you're in the UK, not if you're being decapitated or whatever. How dare you? I saw this one and thought this was really crazy. It says, whoa, self-driving Tesla comes flying through family's home in Texas, killing a woman. So yet again, more wonderful technology that will make all of our lives so much better. This is the video of a Tesla, and I think there was a guy in it. This is what's pretty amazing to me, that the person in it could live, but he does go crashing into a house. It says the Tesla, which the driver says was in self-driving mode. So clearly that works really well. Crashed into a Texas home at high speed on Friday, killing a woman inside the home. Doorbell footage from the incident obtained by Fox shows the blue Tesla Model 3 flying through the front yard before plowing into the home. 76-year-old Martha Mantilla, a grandmother, was killed in the crash. Here's the footage of the car going flying into the house. Full speed. Just like that. Man, just total insanity. Additional video from another residence shows the Tesla flying through the neighborhood before the collision. Authorities say the car was speeding and blew through the intersection, missing its turn before crashing into the home. Man. Law enforcement says the driver, 44-year-old Michael Butler, shows no signs of intoxication and is cooperating with the investigation. He's not facing charges at this time. Could you imagine that he lived through that? That's crazy. Full speed. Tesla currently faces a federal investigation into roughly 3 million Teslas and a potential recall of its self-driving vehicles. You think? Maybe it just doesn't work that great. Here's another picture of the scene here. You can see that it plowed straight into this house. And there's the room. Self-driving Tesla kills woman after crashing into Texas home. It just flew straight into their home, a neighbor said. It happened so quick. So this is the wonderful future that they all have in store for us, apparently, at least Tesla and the other self-driving car manufacturers do. Anyway, I just thought that was really crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where it's full steam, just going completely as fast as possible, pretty much. Doesn't stop at all. There's no sound of the brakes even being hit, didn't look like. And then we have Governor Newsom. California to impose LGBT certification tests for $633 million in government contracts. Yeah, as his pin says here, love is mandatory. Clearly an AI picture, but very accurate, I think. California regulators are encouraging utility companies to steer hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts to LGBT certified businesses. The efforts are part of a state diversity program that bases procurement decisions in part on the sexual orientation or gender identity of business owners. This sounds like California for sure. According to a report by Christopher Rufo at the City Journal, the California Public Utilities Commission has established procurement targets calling for major utilities to direct 1.5% of spending to businesses certified as LGBT owned. 1.5% of spending. Wow. Scoop. California is pressuring public utilities to award $633 million in special contracts to LGBT-owned firms. To qualify, residents must go through the state's official gay certification program and face up to a year in jail if they're not gay enough. Breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. Man, if they're not gay enough, they will be jailed. How do you prove that you are gay enough? That's what I want to know. Actually, I don't want to know that. Man, that is totally insane. Which reminds me, let me let's see, that's not a video. Let me look up something here while I'm thinking about it. I meant to do this earlier. This is a very similar story that I came across. So let me paste this link in here. So this is my friend Alex Newman's Substack. He's on Liberty Sentinel on Substack. And reading that last article just reminded me of this one. Look at this. Speaking of trying to be too gay, students pressured into homosexual kissing by teacher. Students pressured into homosexual kissing by teacher. In a bizarre scandal in Colorado, a lesbian school teacher coerced children into kissing one another. Parents and victims are outraged as the teacher has yet to be prosecuted. Here's the scoop. Students at a government high school in Denver were reportedly pressured by a lesbian teacher to engage in same-sex kissing during a graded class assignment, sparking outrage from parents and victims. You think? The scandal resulted in the educator's dismissal. So far, however, there's no indication that the teacher will even be prosecuted. According to complaints filed by multiple students and other faculty, high school foreign language teacher Jennifer Honka at Northeast Early College had female students act in plays and kiss other females. The bi-weekly skits included titles such as The Neighbors Saw Everything and The Boring Kiss, which featured 3 homosexual kissing scenes. Her name is Jennifer Honka, Honka. Clearly, many of the students were not pleased with what was happening. The students were very uncomfortable and did not know what to do, explained the official report, citing victims and describing the homosexual kissing demanded by the teacher. She went ahead and kissed another student at Honka's direction. Some walked out. I bet they probably got an F, don't you? The behavior was so ubiquitous that students were sharing memes about it. The student then shared a digital meme with a digital meme? Aren't all memes digital? A digital meme with the chemistry teacher that included a picture of Honka and the caption, "She makes girls kiss." Continued the report. The meme had circulated among the students. After this incident, the students' attendance decreased dramatically. Yeah, I would imagine so. Another student who was interviewed as part of the investigation testified that Honka always chose members of the same sex to act out the kissing scenes. Indeed, even though the class had a nearly equal split between boys and girls, the student could not recall a single instance of a heterosexual pairing. That's because to Honka, the only normal is gay. Guaranteed. Anyway, I just wanted to share that bit of lovely breaking news that proves we are living in the end times with you. Because I came across this earlier. Again, my friend Alex Newman is a wonderful writer, and he is the guy that heads up the Liberty Sentinel, which is highly recommended. That he does some really, really good work. I've known him for several years. He was interviewed. Here he is right here. He was interviewed multiple times on Lost Arts Radio. He was a guest on there a lot of times, several times. And was always a really, really good interview. So anyway, yeah, how about that? That was kind of crazy. But it is where we seem to be in this world now. Well, Rod Stewart just doesn't seem to be aging well. This is one guy that, in my opinion, he should be hanging it up. Says the show must go on. Classic rocker Rod Stewart pauses show in Utah after nearly fainting, but he has to use an oxygen tank. Well, he is 80-something, isn't he? We've come to a point in time where the men and women who created the golden era of rock music are in their late 70s or 80s. Many have died or retired, but some remain, plowing away as best they can. This applies to 81-year-old British rock icon Rod Stewart, still touring and raising controversies. He needs to just hang it up. About a week ago, Stewart had to cancel the show at the last minute over health issues, only to be seen attending a World Cup match and indulging in alcoholic beverages. Now, the former Faces star was forced to pause his Friday night concert in Utah and breathe oxygen from a tank on stage, explaining afterward that he nearly fainted. Look at him. He just looks like a relic. Last night, Rod Stewart nearly fainted in the middle of the concert, and they had to give him oxygen in front of all of his fans. Yeah, well, it says TMZ was the first to report the incident at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater in West Valley City, outside Salt Lake. The video shared by the outlet, Stewart could be seen gripping surfaces for support while singing before motioning to a crew member who brings over an oxygen tank and places the mask over his nose and mouth. So they had one on standby. If they have one on standby off the side of the stage, that means this happens routinely. They were ready for it. Come on, Rod, give me a break. Do you really need millions more? Do you? Yeah, I've heard some, let's just say some not so great stories about him over the years. He was not one that I came into contact with ever at Ocean Way when I worked there in the early 90s. But I did come into contact with people who worked with him. And let's just say there's some very interesting stories, and you would not want to share it with your kids. Put it that way. Anyway, I think old Rod needs to hang it up, don't you? All right. Then this one, I know this one will come as really sad news for everyone out there. Nancy Pelosi's net worth falls by millions of dollars as her public career ends. Millions of dollars. Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't, I'm sure she's not going to be broke, but how many millions? Well, get this. It says in 2025, Pelosi's $18.3 million investment in Google stock generated a 65% return. Giving up the reins of the House of Representatives may have come at a cost for Nancy Pelosi, who reportedly lost at least $8 million in net worth in the year after stepping down from leadership. So here's the numbers. Here's where you should get really concerned about how destitute she's going to be. She drops from $257 million down to $249 million. She's about to be in the poorhouse. I mean, she's just under $250 million net worth. I don't see how she could possibly live on that. Maybe Rod Stewart can help her. They're about the same age. Wow. Who are these people? Do we really need any of them in charge of anything? Tulsi Gabbard accuses Fauci of lying about COVID discussions. In other words, she just speaks the truth, stuff that we've all known for 6 years at this point? Somewhere in there. Former top U.S. health official Anthony Fauci lied to Congress when asked whether he spoke to any U.S. intelligence agency about research into the COVID-19 virus. Outgoing Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard argued in a report Thursday. She didn't argue it, she just stated it. Fauci said, while under oath at a 2024 House hearing, that the intelligence community had briefed him multiple times during the COVID-19 pandemic, and he said at least on one occasion the focus of the briefing was on activities in various labs. But Gabbard said a year-long analysis of hundreds of emails and other correspondence showed that Fauci advised intelligence officials on which scientists and papers to trust, shaping their assessments on the origins of the COVID pandemic. Gabbard further accused Fauci of doing so in order to steer inquiry away from his connections to bat coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. As head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, he gave millions in U.S. funds for gain-of-function research at the lab, which is now widely viewed as the source of the accidental leak that started the pandemic, Gabbard said. In his advice to intelligence officials, Fauci specifically recommended experts who were funded by his institute and pushed a natural origin theory of the pandemic, she said. Yeah, well, of course he was lying. We all know he was lying. So, I don't know. Is it good that she came out and said it? Yeah, but her office didn't have any prosecution power. They could put it out there, but do you really think the DOJ is going to do anything? Of course not. It says previously Fauci has flatly denied claims that he was less than truthful about the origins of COVID-19. During the 2024 House hearing, he insisted that he seriously reviewed the lab-based origin theory and denied ever trying to manipulate the discussion. Because he had to, he was lying. He went on to characterize allegations that he used millions of dollars in grant money to bribe scientists to support claims of a natural-based origin for the virus as absolutely false and simply preposterous. Anyway, this one is on WNG.org. That's where that one is. But perhaps there's a way out here. There's a path, Tulsi says. Fauci could be prosecuted for lying to Congress despite preemptive pardon. I thought we'd already passed the, didn't we pass the final date on that? I thought we did. Former Director of National Intelligence Tulsi said in a social media post on Saturday that Dr. Fauci, the architect of the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccine disinformation chief, could still be prosecuted after she released evidence that he lied to Congress about the COVID-19 origins and U.S. funding of gain-of-function research. Fauci received a sweeping pardon from Joe Biden, from the auto pen, in January 2025, shielding him from prosecution for crimes he committed between 2014 and 2025. That's a lot of crimes for this guy. The Department of Justice claims an investigation into the legitimacy of Biden's pardons remains ongoing. So they're still working on it. A year and a half later? Thousands of acts of clemency and executive actions were signed with an auto pen rather than a wet signature under Biden, and his aides wielded the authority without his knowledge. Yeah, I think the only one that he actually signed himself was for Hunter, for his son. I think the rest of them were just all auto pen. Responding to criticisms that she didn't create a path to prosecute Fauci, on X, Gabbard wrote, he lied to Congress in 2024. There is a path. Yes, but I wonder if the statute of limitations is run out. That's what I'm thinking. Seemed like it did already. Anyway, I don't know. She's saying there is a path. Here's the video here of her talking about the whole Fauci and COVID-19 situation. That's on Gateway Pundit. Anyway, again, I don't think anything will ever be done, but that was all mentioned by her on her way out the door. So she is no longer part of the administration. And who can blame her at this point? So, more gay news here. Appeals court blocks California law hiding child gender transition from parents. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a preliminary injunction on Friday to stop California from enforcing a law to keep parents uninformed about a child's gender identity. The law prohibited schools from sharing gender expression details, like whether a student uses a different name or self-identifies with a different sex, unless the student consented. Residents of Huntington Beach sued the state, alleging that the law violated the 14th Amendment right for parents to decide their children's education and medical care. Yeah. The three-judge panel initially rejected the injunction's request, but reconsidered after the Supreme Court sided with parents, suing over the same law on a separate lawsuit. The High Court acknowledged the merits of the parents' argument under the First and 14th Amendments. Ninth Circuit acknowledged a new SCOTUS precedent in the Friday order. The injunction promoted child safety by guaranteeing parents played a role in arguably the most consequential decisions in their children's lives, according to the appeals court. So, I don't know. That's what's going on in California. I guess turns out the parents might have some rights, but who knows for sure, at least until the next court of appeals takes it away from them, I think. Anyway, that one's on WNG.org, and so is this one. Baseball team forfeits game as players refuse the rainbow jerseys. We need more of this. We need more of these players, professional athletes at least at that level, saying no. I think most of them are afraid to lose their contract or lose their ability to play or whatever. So the minor league baseball team called York Revolution announced that it would forfeit its Thursday night matchup against Southern Maryland. The decision came after several York players refused to wear the jerseys with rainbow-colored sleeves for a scheduled LGBTQ-themed event at Wellspan Ballpark in southern Pennsylvania. The York PA team characterized the forfeiture as a great disappointment, adding that the decision was not reached lightly. Although the game itself was off, the 11th annual Pride Night was still scheduled to open Thursday night. In the entry fee, the entry was free, the team said. Tickets to Thursday's forfeited game could be redeemed at any future matchup, according to the team's statement. It says, what do we know about the players who refused to wear the jerseys? The statement did not identify which players chose not to don the rainbow sleeve jerseys or comment on their reasons for not doing so. It also did not specify exactly how many players declined to wear the apparel. So, wow, how about that? That's good. I mean, that's good that some players are at least standing up. That's a minor league baseball team. I'm not sure how minor it is. If it's like one level under the Major League Baseball or if it's more than that. But they all need to be doing it. And I know a lot of these players probably don't really like to have to don the colors, but they still do. Across all sports, not just baseball. Anyway, Senator questions MLB warning for players' Bible verses. So this is a very similar type of story. Senator Josh Hawley, Missouri, on Tuesday asked Major League Baseball, MLB, to provide further details on its warnings to several players who displayed scripture references on their caps. Yeah, they wore the Pride Night baseball hat, but they wrote some scripture on it in like a silver Sharpie or something. The league appeared to be engaging in a pattern of discrimination against Christian players, he said. The players sported the Bible citations during a game marketed to fans as an LGBTQ pride night, where the players' caps all had a rainbow design. The league on Monday issued warnings to 3 San Francisco Giants pitchers. Well, it is San Francisco after all. Pitchers over the scripture references, which came from passages in Genesis describing the biblical meaning of the rainbow. Oh, okay. The players' caps were issued by their team and displayed a rainbow version of the Giants logo. They added the scripture references. The league said that writing on caps wasn't allowed under its rules. I bet you could probably write something pro-gay and it would be totally fine. But Hawley argued that the league did not enforce that policy equally. In 2020, it suspended rules to allow players to display Black Lives Matter slogans on their equipment. So there you go. What I just said. So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens. That's the Major League that we're talking about. So they're all pretty much captured at this time. All of them. Major League baseball, and then football, basketball, hockey, all of them are pretty much captured by the gay rights people. LGBTQ army. All right, and then, let's see here. Drop site news. Iran warned Trump, if you do not end war on Lebanon, we may strike Israel without warning. This is dated 2 days ago. Tehran believes it won a historic victory over the U.S., but is prepared for the deal to fall apart, a senior Iranian official tells Dropsite News. Dropsite News is on Substack. If Trump does not force Israel to halt its escalating attacks on Lebanon, Iran told mediators it's prepared to suspend the agreement signed this week and launch retaliatory strikes against Israel. A senior Iranian official told Dropsite News, regarding Lebanon, we have warned both the mediators and the American side that if the regime fails to comply with the existing agreement, Iran will respond with substantial military measures without prior public notice, said the Iranian official, who is not authorized to speak publicly. Should the U.S. intervene, conditions, particularly those related to the Strait of Hormuz, could rapidly revert to a wartime environment. On Friday, reports emerged that a ceasefire agreement had been reached between Israel and Hezbollah, but an Israeli official said that even with the ceasefire, Israel would not withdraw its forces from Lebanon. Another Israeli official told Channel 12 that Israel retains the right to strike against perceived threats, a common Israeli claim used to systematically violate ceasefire agreements in Gaza and Lebanon. Continued war in Lebanon and Iran's pervasive mistrust of Trump have called into question the viability of a lasting deal. Technical talks that were scheduled to begin Friday in Switzerland were postponed, with Iranian officials citing the continued attacks in Lebanon. Some officials have also denounced the prospect of Iranian leaders being photographed meeting with Trump or other U.S. officials responsible for assassinating the country's supreme leader. Yeah, that could be a problem. I kind of wondered about that. Why are they having their pictures taken? Because it seems to me like the first thing that will happen is Israel will try and kill them as soon as possible. That seems to be the way they work. Anyway, that's on Dropsite News. U.S.-Iran negotiations end. Technical talks will continue after Trump shakes talks with threats. High-level negotiations in Switzerland seeking a permanent end to the war in Iran concluded earlier Monday, with lower-level talks planned for the rest of the week as Iran and the United States agreed to create a deconfliction cell to address the fighting in Lebanon. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think the Israelis would go for anything like that, really, ever. The statement from mediators, Pakistan and Qatar, said that the cell would include the Lebanese government and would ensure the adherence of the termination of military operations in Lebanon. But it remains unclear whether it will be enough to stop fighting between the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah and Israel, which occupies Lebanon and insists it must maintain a free hand to attack militants who are launching attacks into northern Israel. U.S.-Iran talks in Switzerland. What is known so far? This is also from today. Negotiations were allegedly interrupted after the Iranian delegation protested new threats by Trump. So he just does not know when to shut up, does he? Just continues to push and push. Negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, mediated by Qatar and Pakistan, commenced on Sunday in the Swiss lake resort of Bergenstock. The meeting is the first round of the talks aimed at reaching a final settlement to the war in line with the Memorandum of Understanding. That's the MOU. Memorandum of Understanding signed earlier this week. U.S. was represented by J.D. Vance, as well as Trump, Special Envoys Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, the real estate agents. The unelected real estate agents. The Iranian delegation, led by Foreign Minister Eregshi and Parliament Speaker Galibaf, included the head of the Iranian Central Bank and Deputy Oil Minister and the chairman of the National Iranian Oil Company. The talks were initially scheduled for Friday, but were postponed after Israeli attacks on Lebanon, as always. According to the Iranian news agency Mer, Sunday's negotiations were also halted some 80 minutes into the meeting after Trump threatened to hit Iran very hard again. So they just continue to push and push. And it's no wonder. I mean, Iran's leaders probably think that they're going to get assassinated anytime they walk in somewhere like that, I would imagine. And who could blame them? Because that's how the U.S. and Israel operate. Again, goes back to the old meme. Hans, are we the baddies? We are definitely the baddies. Well, not you and I, but our ridiculous empiric government is. Israel plans biggest West Bank settlement expansion in decades. More than $350 million is expected to be allocated to establish infrastructure for 61 future settlements. That is invading someone's territory. Israel has earmarked broad swaths of the West Bank for scores of new settlements, a move that could isolate Palestinian villages and tighten West Jerusalem's grip on the territory. Israeli government has accelerated its push to annex larger and larger portions of the West Bank in recent years, accompanied by escalating settler violence. The international community and in the U.S., Israel's biggest ally. Oh yes, don't forget, Israel is our biggest ally. Also opposed the bid, with Trump vowing to not allow annexation. Yeah, he's been saying that, but they don't do what he wants to be done, and yet he keeps saying Israel always does what I say. Figure that one out. Smotrich, which is Israel's far-right finance minister and West Bank settler, who holds authority in the defense ministry over civilian affairs in the region, is backing the land grab. Of course he is. What is it? Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are both the crazy war hawks really in charge, the Likudnik party war hawks that are really running things, I think maybe even more so than Netanyahu is. So yes, Israel expands settlements in West Bank, plans to spend $339 million on construction. This says $350 million. But don't forget, Israel is our biggest ally. Okay, and let's see here. Oh yeah, this is some of the Keir Starmer stuff here. Starmer is ready to resign. This is on The Telegraph, which is a UK publication. Starmer is ready to resign, say allies. Prime Minister's support evaporating as Burnham's backers hope for a coronation. I guess that means of the next person. Allies of Sir Keir Starmer believe he is preparing to step down after facing an evaporation of support over the weekend. Well, part of that might have to do with the RAPE report that just came out that we were talking about earlier tonight. A senior government figure told The Telegraph the embattled prime minister was realizing that the game is up, and his thoughts were turning to how he could shore up his legacy. They said that there had been quite a bit of movement among cabinet ministers since Andy Burnham's Makerfield's by-election victory, leading Sir Keir to reconsider his previous commitment to soldiering on. One Labour Minister of Parliament, who is usually considered to be a loyalist to the Prime Minister, said he believed Sir Keir would announce his departure date as soon as Monday, tomorrow, given that his support among MPs was now down only to a handful of friends and family. There's no one left. Literally, people whose relatives work in number 10, meaning like their White House, number 10 Downing Street, or people who are long-term personal friends of Keir's are pretty much the only ones left. They said, adding that trying to stand in the way of Mr. Burnham's path to Downing Street was like trying to fight gravity. So Burnham is apparently the most likely the next Prime Minister. Keir Starmer may be on his way out as early as tomorrow, according to this. Yeah, PM at risk of humiliating himself. One government source told BBC that it's nuts to imagine Sir Keir could beat Mr. Burnham in a leadership battle, with a cabinet source saying that they would not want to see the Prime Minister humiliate himself in a contest. So yeah, it's apparently getting pretty bad over there for King Charles's right-hand man, Sir Keir Starmer. What will happen? And even Trump has gotten in on it, of course, by saying, this was earlier today, this morning, Sir Keir Starmer, no, he didn't say sir, but Keir Starmer will resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He failed badly on two important subjects, immigration and energy. Open North Sea oil, he says. I wish him well. So yes, Trump wants to stay buddies, stay friends with him. Yeah, but he's saying that Sir Keir will be leaving very soon as well. And then, yet again, here's another article. This one's just on Zero Hedge, similar thing. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer expected to resign on Monday. Blah, blah, blah. Just over a week after Andy Burnham stormed back into Parliament with a crushing by-election win. Prime Minister is, according to senior Labour figures cited by The Observer, preparing to set out a timetable for his own departure, with a clear statement possible as early as Monday. Okay. So he's probably not leaving tomorrow, but he may be announcing something tomorrow. According to this. That's probably more likely. So yeah, Burnham. Burnham is the person who will be stepping in, most likely. Again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, speaking of British royalty and the good king, who is not at all good in any way, support for UK monarchy hits record low, according to a poll. More young Britons believe the UK would be better off as a republic than a monarchy. An Ipsos survey has suggested. I think that's bad news for KC3, don't you? And his ilk. Almost half of British Commonwealth wants to ditch monarchy. Public support for the British monarchy has fallen to its lowest level in over 3 decades, a new poll suggested. Just under half of Britons still favoring removing the monarchy, with support particularly weak among younger people. Support for the monarchy has steadily declined since reaching a peak of 80% in 2012 and fell to 55% this year. The figure is the lowest recorded by the market research and polling company since it began tracking the issue in 1993. It's well below its long-term average of 71%. So average was about that, but now it's down to 55%. Says satisfaction with King Charles and his heir, Prince William, remains high. Interesting, huh? Poll suggested as 60% and 71% respondents respectively said that they liked the way the king and the prince were doing their jobs. What jobs do they even have? They just go from fancy ball to some opening of something and then disappear for a while, and then they come out and go to another fancy ball and then some opening of something else, and perhaps plant a tree or cut something with a giant pair of scissors or something like that. That's about all they do. Despite the fact that he does want to be the soon-to-be biblical Antichrist, according to what I can figure out here. Yeah, it says the monarchy's popularity took a hit over one of the royal family members' longstanding association with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, that would be his brother, ex-Prince Andrew. Yeah, so anyway, but it does sort of, I think it is worth pointing out that the whole RAPE report that was issued, if that comes out and it is pointing directly to the British Crown, I think that could be something that people might not be too happy about. But I do think it's interesting that they're saying here support for the UK monarchy hits record low poll. We'll see where it goes. It could be that the RAPE report may not have anything to do with that. But I do find this interesting, and let me open one other tab here as well, and we'll swap back and forth here between them. Just wanted to show you this. Now, this is from Revelation 13, and we're talking about, people being dissatisfied with the monarchy and therefore Charles and what could feasibly happen. People talk about the mortal wound and so forth. And who knows if this is what's in store, but it is interesting the timing of all of this, isn't it? With Starmer being really one of the main fall guys here on this whole RAPE report that's coming out. And Starmer, of course, is the right-hand man to King Charles. It makes you wonder how much Charles can really get away with dissociating himself from that. So, looking at Revelation 13 just a little bit here. Now, the beast which I saw was like a leopard. So look at this. So this is Revelation 13:2. Now, the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear. This picture is the coat of arms of the Prince of Wales, which is now the King of England. This is his personal coat of arms. Note the feet here. The feet of a bear. Okay? And his mouth like the mouth of a lion. Here it is right here. Mouth like the mouth of a lion. Body like a leopard. Mouth like a lion. Right? The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Don't you think Charles has great authority? A power? Power from the dragon himself. And he certainly has a throne. It says, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Well, like it or not, Charles does have a lot of power. And it is interesting how you have the beast who has a body like a leopard, feet like that of a bear, and mouth like a lion. And there are other things that you can point to that are part of this coat of arms as well. And Tim Cohen goes into great detail about this in his book and in his interviews that he talks about all of this, and then the 666 and how that's associated with Charles as well. And I find it very interesting and very compelling, actually, the way it's presented, which I didn't really do it justice tonight, but I wanted to show you that at least and get you thinking about that if you're not already. So let's continue to peruse the new website that I've mentioned multiple times across the last few shows, Revelation1823.net. So let's continue from where we left off. I think that was down here. We did that last week. All All right. So next point is the candle of Revelation 18:23, the Holy Spirit. The spirit of a man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. Proverbs 20:27. Proverbs 20:27, this scripture reveals that when our human spirit is lit by God, it will act like a candle, searching our inner thoughts, motives, and desires. Need a reference? For thou wilt light my candle, the Lord my God will enlighten my darkness. Psalm 18:28. And while the Bible does not explicitly say the candle is the Holy Spirit, we know as believers it is simply a metaphor, as stated in Matthew 5:14, Revelation 22:5, John 8:12, etc., which begs the question, can we snuff out our own candle? Surely the light of the wicked, immoral, will be snuffed out. The sparks of their fire will not glow. The light in their tent will grow dark. The lamp candle hanging above them will be quenched. Job 18:5-6. Did you see the progression? The light grows dim, then extinguishes. In the Bible, wickedness, immorality is often associated with moral depravity and rebellion against God's will. And if ever there was an industry that is in total rebellion to the Lord, the merchants of Revelation 18:23's vaccination cartel wins, hands down, which explains why the light of a candle, the Holy Spirit, shall shine no more at all in thee. Do we really expect a holy God to wink at these vaccine contents? Talked a lot about the old VAXXs tonight. Human DNA from aborted babies, Moloch worship, pig blood, horse blood, sheep blood, rabbit brains, dog kidneys, cow hearts, monkey kidneys, chicken embryos, calf serum, aluminum, mercury, formaldehyde, GMOs, animal proteins, glyphosate. Boy, wouldn't you like to have all that injected right into your bloodstream? I'm just adding that. Human-animal chimeras, a.k.a. recombinant DNA technology, a.k.a. the days of Noah, CRISPR-9, Cas9, gene editing scissors, and the list goes on and on. To Satan's crowning achievement, the abomination of rewriting our DNA with an mRNA computer-generated synthetic code, a.k.a. the COVID-19 vaccine. In other words, artificial life no longer recognizable by God, thus kicking the Lord out of the driver's seat of our DNA blueprint. All documented and explained in this book, which is this website that we're looking at. Yeah, those vaccine ingredients sound more like a witch's brew. They sure do. Do not concern yourself if the above medical terms sound confusing, as they will all be explained in detail later. For that is the purpose of this book, to show you why our Messiah warned us in detail about this industry and how each medical practice mentioned above specifically violates the Word of God. A couple more paragraphs here. Last objection before we move on. Doesn't Revelation 18:23 say that the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee? Seems pretty conclusive. Until we cross-reference, I, God, am going to remove from this place the voices of the groom and the bride. Jeremiah 16:9. And what was Jeremiah warning of? The same thing Revelation 18:23 is warning of. Persistent idolatry and disobedience. And did they listen to Jeremiah? No. The voices of the bride, meaning the people of Judah, were judged and banished to Babylonian exile for 70 years. The point is, the book of Revelation is up and running, and God, the groom, is calling us to wash our robes, Revelation 22:14, and repent before it's too late. So next week we will look at this. It's 2026. COVID is gone. Really? WEF director, COVID-19 was a test of social responsibility. So again, we're just going through little by little, kind of in piecemeal, this website, taking it a little bit at a time. There's a lot here. Revelation1823.net. And I've heard from several people who have told me that they really like this website, which I had a very tiny hand in helping to produce, and very happy that my good friend Brian has put this information out there because it really needs to all be in one place, and I think he's done a remarkable job at that. All right, and then let's go on to the Wine Press Substack. We haven't done a whole lot on AI tonight, but this one is an AI story. Brazilian woman dies after AI-powered hospital. I didn't even know those existed. AI-powered hospital failed to remotely transfer her to the ICU unit. Did you know they were AI-powered hospitals? What we saw was that doctors lost the autonomy to say whether the patient was very serious, said the family member. Wow. As AI makes its way into hospitals and doctoral care in nursing around the world, the recent death of a woman in Brazil highlights the risks involved with allowing AI to handle the intimate care and labor normally handled by living people. I think that would be a good idea. Let living people handle that. Psychologist Rebecca Molina, 32, died after spending about 5 days waiting for a transfer to an ICU bed in Minas Gerais. The case occurred after a hospitalization in, I can't pronounce it, in Zona de Mata and air transport to Oliveira in the center west of Minas on Saturday. Or maybe Minas. The delay in finding the vacancy and distance between the two cities led the family, who are from Mar de Espanha, to question the functioning of the new system of the Central Operations for State Regulation, replacing SUS Facil. So this is her, I guess. According to Rebecca's twin sister, the lawyer, the psychologist sought medical attention on June 2nd due to gallstones. The health condition rapidly worsened. When she got there at the hospital with the surgeon, she was already taken back to the hospital because she started to no longer feel her arms and legs. And she got worse until she needed to be intubated and started bleeding. With the clinical worsening, Rebecca began to require an urgent transfer to an intensive care bed. The family even went to court to try to expedite the vacancy. The ICU bed was only made available on June 6th in Oliveira, approximately 300 kilometers from where she was. According to the family, the task force was organized to transport Rebecca by private plane to the municipality. She was transferred, but died just a few hours later. Cause of death is still being investigated. According to the sister, family members are still awaiting clarification on what caused the rapid worsening of the clinical condition. But, yeah. And you are going to read and hear more stories just like this one in the months and years to come as the corporate and state owners who occupy these hospitals and care facilities and offices retrofit and replace physical staff with AI and robots. More people will be left to die because the AI failed to transfer the patient to the ICU. AI will deem someone healthy when they are not, and vice versa. The AI administer the wrong prescriptions or get the dosage incorrect, leading to overdoses and bad reactions, if not even death. The AI will recommend the wrong treatment, and incompetent staff will administer the wrong treatment for surgery. And when severe injury or death occurs, the staff in the hospital will say, "Don't blame me, blame ChatGPT." Yeah, or whatever the AI is. It's pretty easy to wash your hands of the whole situation and just say, well, the computer told us to do this or to not do this. Yep, that's where it's headed, isn't it? We can all see it coming straight down Broadway, unfortunately. That's where it's all headed fast. Another Wine Press article, it begins. Israel to host world's first official international congress of Noahides to install global courts of law resulting in persecution of all believers in Jesus Christ. This November, the most committed Noahide leaders from around the globe will gather in Jerusalem to formally found together the World Noahide Movement. implementation of international Noahide laws and criminal justice courts is set to take a greater leap this year and was recently announced by the Noahide World Center that they will be sponsoring the world's first International Congress of Noahides in Jerusalem in November this year. The announcement of such an unprecedented event comes at a time when nations, governments, and tech companies around the world are increasingly censoring and criminalizing so-called anti-Semitism and criticism of Israel. Yeah. Also follows Trump's pronouncement of the country's first ever declared national Sabbath in May, calling upon all Americans to stand in solidarity with Jewish Americans as part of Jewish Heritage Month, while also vowing to further clamp down on anti-Semitism as noted by the wine press at the time, first of its kind. Announcement marked a significant departure from standard executive practice, integrating a specific Jewish religious observance into the formal framework of the nation's 250th anniversary, according to one commentator for the Times of Israel, who also said this presented an opportunity for all Americans to join in. Yeah, and if you don't, you are anti-Semitic. That didn't say that. I'm just adding that. Yeah, these political gestures and policy shifts reflect the growing movement that seeks to directly implement more Judaic and Noahic laws globally, and this latest conference further seems to insinuate a much greater acceptance of these principles. What is a Noahide? Yeah, what is a Noahide? For some background on their website, which is noahideworldcenter.com, they say their organization is recognized by the chief rabbis of Israel, the former chief rabbi of Jerusalem, and other important rabbis, as seen on our website and in our books, and is directly associated with Chabad Judaism. And so this institution is about as legitimate as it gets. Got the bullet points on the map here. Its founders and primary teachers openly promoted the traditions contained in the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, and the mystical practices of Kabbalah. And here are some of these founders, I guess, some of the different rabbis. This guy's last name is Kook. According to the website, the organization says Noahides are a community of non-Jews who follow the righteous laws of Noah, according to the teachings of the Jewish Bible, which again would be the Talmud. A shared mission unites Noahides from different cultures worldwide to live morally, create peace, and mend the world. That's all they want to do. They just want to fix the world, mend the world, and kill you if you don't go along with them. So anyway, there's all of the, here's the 7 Noahide laws here. And some videos embedded. For clarification purposes, the Noahide World Center notes that on a separate page describing the declaration a convert to the Noahide faith should make, they state adherence to these laws, this is a quote, adherence to these laws professed out of an understanding that they were initially commanded to all humanity and subsequently are a manifestation of the Sinai revelation to be bequeathed to all humankind through the Torah of Moshe, grants a person the status of righteous Gentile. So how about that? Then here's the pledge and all that stuff. However, they make it clear in the footnotes that declaring Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, Lord and God, is considered blasphemy to them. Here's that quote. It is important to note that if you believe that Jesus is God, note that the G in God is lowercase. If you believe that Jesus is God or an incarnation of God, you would not be able to make this declaration sincerely. The Hebrew tradition is clear that God, with a capital G, is one and cannot become a human form ever. Please accept our wishes for a blessed life, and may you continue learning the Bible with us. So they don't want you if you are a believer in Jesus. That's okay. I don't want them either. But yeah, they will lop off your head as soon as they get the chance. Now, this particular Substack is really long. So I guess if you want everything you ever or maybe never wanted to know about the no-hide laws, it's all on here. Oh yeah, and even Benny Shapiro's on here. BS. Old BS is on here. Lots of articles and videos, and there's the Israeli ambassador to Israel. I would say he was, officially I think he's the American ambassador to Israel, but technically he's the Israeli ambassador to Israel. Nothing American about him, if you ask me. Yeah, lots of videos, tons and tons of stuff here. How Trump is donning the tiny hat and worshiping the wall of the old Roman fort, just like so many other people do. All right. Well, anyway, that was a Wine Press Substack voluminous article. There's a lot there. All right, and then here is Leo Hohmann's Substack that I pulled up for this week. I think this is the only one of his. Senator Tom Cotton blames America's overwhelming resistance to AI data centers on China attempting to manipulate public opinion. Does he honestly believe Americans would be clamoring for more AI data surveillance centers if it wasn't for China? This guy is lock, stock, and barrel owned by Israel. And by the way, I said this to a friend of mine. We need to start pronouncing it the correct way. It's not Israel. We have to say it like all the MAGA people say it. The new MAGA people. Like BS, Ben Shapiro, or Mark Levin, or whoever. They don't say Israel. They say Israel. So we have to start saying it that way too. Israel. Izrul. Israel. Okay? And that's, I'm sure, how this guy here, Tom Cotton, also pronounces it. Israel. That's how Lindsey Graham says it, so it must be right. China is allegedly engaging in a covert influence campaign to prevent the development of construction of thousands of AI data surveillance centers in the U.S. According to the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Tom Cotton, the Arkansas Republican who chairs the committee, disclosed what he described as a Chinese influence effort in a letter to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Cotton is seeking federal investigation into the matter. He offered no proof, just innuendo. Yeah, but he's going to spend millions investigating it. Alarming reports indicate that a network of foreign actors led by the Chinese Communist Party is attempting to manipulate U.S. policy and public opinion on data centers, Cotton said in the letter sent last Wednesday. Maintaining America's AI advantage is vital to American economic strength, diplomacy, national security, and military power, he continued. Adding, once again, Communist China is lying and cheating to get ahead. I can't believe they're blaming China here. I thought they blamed everything on Russia. Seems obvious they should blame Putin. Anyway, yeah, he thinks it takes China to convince Americans that having AI data centers in your backyard, sucking up all the electricity and all the water, is a bad thing. Yeah, it's China having to explain it all to us. No, Tom Cotton, that is not the case whatsoever. Just please go back to Israel. Enough of that guy. All right, Michael Snyder, we've got a couple of posts from him on his Substack. Literally none of the most important issues have been resolved by the Memorandum of Understanding. Well, they keep calling this the MOU, and from what I understand, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, is primarily used in real estate deals. They're using it in this deal, which, as we looked at earlier, kind of is a real estate deal, in a way. Land grab, or whatever you want to call it, in Iran. But they keep calling it the MOU, which makes me think of MICKEY, MOUSE. The old Disney song that the little kids used to sing. So yeah, it's the MOUSE. I'm going to start calling it that. But the SE, we need to come up with something for that. What could the SE be? Satan something. Memorandum of Understanding. Satan. The S should be Satan. I don't know. What could the E be? Satan evolves. I don't know. We'll come up with something. Why is there so much excitement about an agreement with Iran that literally solves none of the key issues that the two sides were fighting about? The long-term status of the Strait of Hormuz is not resolved. The war between Israel and Hezbollah is not resolved. Nobody seems to have any idea where the $300 billion investment fund for Iran is going to come from. Well, that's from Donald Trump. He obviously said that he was going to pay it. And none of the nuclear issues that this war was supposedly about in the first place have been resolved either. So what in the world did the Memorandum of Understanding actually accomplish? Well, not a whole lot. I can pretty much tell you that. It says, yes, the Memorandum of Understanding is supposed to open the Strait of Hormuz for a period of 60 days. I think that's already over, isn't it? Does anyone know? But as I pointed out a few days ago, Iranian leaders have told us over and over again that once the 60-day period is ended, a maritime service fee will be imposed on all ships that travel through the strait. Any ships that are not willing to pay up will have to face the wrath of the Iranian military. Yeah, unless, of course, the United States military takes over, then they'll have to face the wrath of the American military. But U.S. officials are telling us an entirely different story. See, no one knows what the heck is going on here. So I think we've pretty much figured all this out. No one knows what's going on. They're just over there wasting billions of dollars a day and calling it a Memorandum of Understanding. Yeah, Enterprises. There you go. Susan's got it. Memorandum of Understanding. M-O-U-S-E. Memorandum of Understanding Satan's Enterprises. Very good. Very good. I'll take that one. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. I think that's... somehow I unfortunately think that Michael Snyder may be actually buying into or believing the fact that Trump knows what he's doing here and has America's best interest in mind. He doesn't. Newsflash, he doesn't. He only cares about his own family. Period. That's it. For paid subscribers, the deal with Iran is falling apart, and this is what I think is going to happen next, Michael says. Why can't they understand what's happening? No one does. That's what I keep saying. I always thought that we would be the generation that finally got it. I assumed that we would, and know that we would be, no way we would miss the signs, but I was wrong. Events of immense historic importance are happening all around us, and yet most of the population is running around as if everything is going to be just fine. I don't know anybody that thinks everything's going to be just fine, personally. So as they continue to cry out peace and safety, then sudden destruction will unexpectedly arrive. I think I said that last week. War, famine, pestilence, colossal natural disasters are in our future. Yeah, don't forget about the Godzilla El Nino that will destroy us all. That's coming soon, too. Of course, this is not what most people are expecting. There are so many prominent voices that include prominent voices that once spoke the truth are now saying things that are absolutely vile. Repulsive ideologies are spreading like wildfire, and I've never seen more confusion than I am seeing right now. That's because we're in the end times. I think that's all how it's supposed to work, is it not? That's how I understand it anyway. If someone is proclaiming a message of hate, that is a major red flag right there. We're supposed to love everyone on the entire planet. We are. That includes those that have done some of the most evil things imaginable. There is nobody that is out of the reach of my Jesus. He can take the broken pieces of anyone's life and turn them into a beautiful thing. Yeah, but they have to want that. I don't know that the evil ones do. That's true, but they have to want it. There are former convicts that are now doing amazing work. That's true. There are former terrorists that are now sharing the gospel wherever they go. That's true, I'm sure. So I'm just going to continue to proclaim the message of love. If some people don't like that, that's too bad for them. Of course, we are against the evil that is destroying lives all over the world. If we do the things that God tells us to do, we will be blessed. If we do not do the things that God tells us to do, we will be cursed. Yeah, but sidebar here, that does not mean supporting Israel. I have to keep correcting myself. Sadly, our world is in deep rebellion against God, and we can see the consequences of this rebellion all around us, so we must shine a light in the darkness. So that's all good. I agree with that. For the most part, I think he's right. There are so few prominent voices that are telling the truth these days, and many of the prominent voices that once did such a great job of that have passed away in recent years. We live in a world that desperately needs to hear the truth, and the truth is that we really are living in the end times, that this is a message of hope. Because when people realize that God told us in history, told us history in advance that there is no way that they can deny that the Bible is true. That's a good point. I believe that the end times warning message is the number one tool that we will have to point people to Jesus during the chaotic days that are ahead of us. We aren't here by accident. If God didn't want you to be here, you wouldn't be here. We were born for such a time as this. I mentioned that just last week. It's time for all of us to rise up and become the people that we were created to be. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to fulfill the destiny that God has set before you. For some reason, God has placed us in the most dramatic time in all of human history, and that should deeply excite you. We get to be here for the wildest chapter of the story, and there is going to be so much for us to do. So I think that's all true. I agree with all that. It's a good point. And yeah, we are definitely living in the end times. I can't see it any other way, really, at this point. So much is going wrong. So much is going exactly as the Bible predicted that it would. And the things that he didn't mention here that I will mention, things that will, right here, it says, I believe that the end times warning message is the number one tool we have that will point people to Jesus during the chaotic days that are ahead of us. I think that's true, and that's a good point. But also, according to the Ron Wyatt story that I have talked about so many times and many videos and news reports over the years, really, you also have the fact that when the Ark of the Covenant is, quote, discovered, when it's revealed, they've known where it is for a long time, in fact, right there in Jerusalem, in a cave. Ron found it in the 80s, and with that will be the blood evidence, the blood analysis reports that were already done by multiple labs across the world is laying right there, and there's videotape evidence of him, Ron, holding the 10 Commandments up, and so we will have that theoretically, at least, if it's ever discovered for real. Which it's been discovered. It's just a matter of when is it going to come out. You have all of that, and the Ark itself, and so many other things that he talks about. And I think those will also help point people to God and point people to Jesus, because that's further proof. Just like all the information lately that's come out about Noah's Ark and so many other things. Sodom and Gomorrah, that was found. Again, Ron Wyatt was instrumental in finding and discovering all these places, because I believe that Ron had a real heart for God, and he didn't care about anything other than discovering the truth of the Bible and putting it out there and knowing that his information would be released at the exact perfect appropriate time by God. And I think that time is now. So it's just a matter of figuring out, when those things happen, what you can do to help promote God's message and that of Jesus Christ. At least if you ask me. So I think that Michael had a lot of good things to say in that post. So here's a couple more here that are Substacks, but from different people. This one is the Wise Wolf, which I mention oftentimes on the show. The New World Order's Party Planning Committee just got hacked, and what they're planning is World War III. The most powerful people on Earth are flying to Ireland this August for off-the-record workshops, which we mentioned this near the beginning of the show tonight, on building cults and navigating the apocalypse. You weren't supposed to know it exists. Yeah. Do you remember what it's called? Peter Thiel's dialogue, right? So this is yet another article about Peter Thiel. So if you want further information about his new billionaire group here that he's put together, he says here, a quick word before the deep end. This is probably the longest thing I've ever put out, according to the Wise Wolf here. I tried to write it alone and couldn't. About 1,000 words in, buried under a leaked guest list of the most powerful people on Earth. I a panel schedule where those same people sit down to talk about building cults in World War III, a tech mogul who spent last fall lecturing sold-out crowds about the Antichrist and a family tree that runs from a banned 1930s anti-democracy movement straight to Elon Musk, my ADHD threw in the towel, and I had to call Lily in to help me hold all of it in place all at once. So this one's a we, not an I type of article. This guy's saying here. Again, the wise wolf. Oh, and he mentions Lily Rose, who's the person he's writing with here. My honest advice, if your attention span is as cooked as mine, don't bail out and go skim something easier. Read this in pieces. Take it one section at a time over a couple of days, if that's what it takes, because every word of it is real and it's sourced. And it's one of the most important stories to surface in months, and you will not see it on Fox, and you will not see it on CNN. There's a reason for that, and the reason is sitting on the guest list. So obviously we can't read this whole thing tonight, but it is right here. I'll just give you a little skim through here. Billionaire's Manual for Keeping You from Realizing the Plan to Enslave You. Look who came to the party, then look at what's on the schedule. Now read what those people booked flights to Ireland to discuss. Navigating World War III, quote unquote. Battlefield technologies. Bring back nuclear. Build a cult. World War weapons, cult building, and writing on a real agenda. Wedged between the war panels like a breakout session on better email habits. Yeah, so it goes into Elon Musk's grandfather and all of the backstory here. So this is crazy. So if you wanted more information about dialogue, it is on here. I thought this was probably the most comprehensive article I could find about it. Looking to see if there's anything else I need to mention for now. Well, it is really long. Here it says, addendum, the guest list. Looking to see what names we know, or what names I know. Dialogue has now collected 3 men who ran the United States Treasury. Behind them, the hedge fund and crypto bench. Okay. And it mentions several names here, people I don't really know who they are, but you guys might. Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, he's on the list. OpenAI's president, Greg Brockman, and its chief strategy officer. Neuralink director, YouTube CEO, cluster of Google and DeepMind executives. So all these people, yeah, Jonathan Greenblatt, of course, who runs the ADL. The person who runs the Cato Institute, Charles Koch Foundation, of course. So yeah, names and people that are definitely known. A lot of people that certainly I've never heard of. Mentions Rick Warren here. Yeah, there's your build a cult person. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot here. He goes deep. Anyway, that is a very long Wise Wolf post. But again, we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out. If you're on that list, you will get it in your inbox automatically. All right. Is Hollywood / Silicon Valley satanic cult planning a nuclear war? And then it says probably. A billionaire brotherhood, an engineered apocalypse, and the question I am done staying quiet about. American Horror Story. Hollywood already showed you the plan. The Wise Wolf was just the only one that noticed. For 20 years, I told myself the men who made my favorite video games and movies were just being edgy. I am writing this because the real world finally made a liar out of me, he says. I played those games with a controller in one hand and a Bible concordance open on the carpet, which teaches a kid to notice when a thing is wearing borrowed clothes. I grew up inside Bethesda's worlds, Morrowind and Oblivion and Fallout, the longer I played, the more I saw the same furniture in every one. Every game had its doomsday cult. Every game had a secret order with a forbidden book and graded ranks and a master nobody was allowed to question. Every game had a dark god who could only be born through catastrophe. The movies ran the same loop on a bigger budget. The candle-lit ritual and the hero stumbles on too late. The secret society that already knows the date the world ends. The chosen few at the bunker and a guest list. I called it edgy because edgy is the small word you grab when the true word would keep you up at night. Hold on to that word. It does not survive this article. The plot they already filmed for you. For about a decade, FX ran a horror anthology series called American Horror Story. A fresh standalone nightmare every season, marginally popular and somehow popular enough to run for 10 of them. The Antichrist is born, a child of hell with a human face, raised quiet and raised patient. He grows up and he does not raise an army or run for office. He goes to Silicon Valley. He recruits the billionaires, the engineers, the men who build the machines, and he sets them on to constructing everything that his takeover needs. See, that's all unfolding now, isn't it? Anyway, this goes on. This one's pretty dark, obviously. It's got Peter Thiel with horns and stuff, which I don't know that he's saying that he's the Antichrist, which I certainly don't think he is, but like all these guys, they're all helping to build it, just like Trump is helping to build the infrastructure of the Antichrist. There's a lot here on this one as well. It's another pretty long article on the Wise Wolf Substack. All right, and then we've got one more Substack from Insight to Insight. Now, I mentioned Huckabee earlier. Well, I didn't mention his name, but you knew who I was talking about. Huckabee Trail. He claims America's founding was Jewish, and Israel made the U.S. The U.S. ambassador to Israel. See, that's his official title, but I think he's the Israeli ambassador to Israel. Mike Huckabee has come down with a terminal case of dispensationalism, and now he's betraying Trump and the United States. What if America's ambassador to Israel is no longer acting as America's ambassador at all? What if the man tasked with representing U.S. interests abroad has become more like Israel's ambassador to the United States? Which is, I think that's kind of what I just said. Publicly correcting his own president, undermining American diplomacy, and promoting a foreign government's priorities over those of the nation he swore to serve. Mike Huckabee's latest remarks were not merely another awkward gaffe from a zealous Christian Zionist. They exposed a deeper problem that's been hiding in plain sight for decades, a political and theological worldview so committed to Israel's interest that it struggles to distinguish them from America's. Wow. So this is all about Mike Huckabee Trail. Pretty clever. Apparently the article is open here for non-subscribers, but if you want the podcast version of this, I guess you have to be a subscriber. But the article does appear to be available about Huckabee. Anyway, yeah. Israel's ambassador to Israel, if you ask me. Just got a few more articles tonight. We'll take a look at this one. From AJ, Alex Jones Live, Israeli security and defense expert says America needs another Pearl Harbor or 9/11 to remember who is the enemy and who is the friend. We know who the enemy is, don't we? That would be our greatest ally. Zionists are furious about Trump administration's Iran deal. Yeah. Benny, I guess, Sabti, an Israeli defense expert at the Institute for National Security Studies think tank affiliated with Tel Aviv University, posted on social media over the weekend, writing that the U.S. might need to suffer another deadly terrorist attack in order to understand who's the country's real enemy. Maybe the USA needs another Pearl Harbor of 9/11 to remember who is the enemy and who is the friend, Sabti wrote, before editing his message to say, good luck for USA to handle Iran regime terrorists. I hope for USA administration to remember who is the enemy and who is the friend. So he edited his post from one thing to the next. Maybe the USA needs another Pearl Harbor or 9/11, Israeli defense expert says. So there you go. If you ever wanted to watch out for a false flag, now would be the time to start. I think I mentioned that last week. Clearly, they're going to try something. Especially if Trump or whoever decides they don't want any part of a war with Iran any further, you can bet some cities of ours will get toasted. That's probably what's going to happen. And Israel will be the ones to do it. Guaranteed. Why Meta suddenly loves the Kids Online Safety Act. This is on reclaimthenet.org. The reversal landed the moment the Senate paired the bill with the digital ID mandate that Meta has chased for years. For years, Meta cast itself as the reluctant holdout against the Kids Online Safety Act, the one company that just could not bring itself to endorse the bill, at least on the face of it. Written to protect the children, but it has ulterior motives. That resistance lasted right up until the Senate sweetened the pot. Once lawmakers bundled KOSA, Kids Online Safety Act, with a federal block on state AI laws and a national digital ID push, two measures Meta has spent millions lobbying to win. The company located its conscience and decided the bill was tolerable after all. Isn't that nice? Meta strolls away with a single, gentler national standard, while residents lose the local protections they had started to build, and the whole trade gets filed under everyone wins as long as everyone means Meta. Yeah, so that's where it's headed, isn't it? Part of the digital beast infrastructure system. Noise at Virginia data center drowns out neighborhood. The data center noise irks Virginia neighbors. You just want to curse, they say. This is on News Nation. Imagine living next to the Vantage data center in Sterling, Virginia, which stands tall with its blue walls and massive generators, and having to hear its constant ringing. The massive facility was never hooked up to the power grid, so the generators are its only source of electricity. Neighbor Hari Du said residents were told the generators were temporary. That was more than a year ago. We were told in the beginning that they test generators to make sure that they're working in case of an emergency. And then as the year and the months have gone on, they've just never turned the power off. Never turned off. Greg Perio also lives next to the data center and says with the constant noise, you just want to curse. It's that bad. He said he's concerned about property values and consulted with lawyers to see what options they may have. But it's about more than money. It's about quality of life, homeowners say. One neighbor even put plexiglass against the window to block the noise and uses sound meters to monitor the decibel level. You can see a picture of it here. Right here. And they're literally just, not even 100 yards away. Virginia is the data center epicenter of the world. There are hundreds of them, consuming more than 25% of the state's power and driving up electric bills. Yeah. Virginia is a real mess, isn't it? President Trump has encouraged data centers to build dedicated energy sources to help protect utility customers against rate hikes. Yeah. There are positives with data centers. They create jobs when they're built. Yeah, like 2 or 3 jobs maybe. And then the robots will have those. They generate local tax revenue that can help schools with lower property taxes. They are pretty much inevitable with the way we use technology, arguably becoming essential infrastructure. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, yeah. So that's too bad that they're experiencing that. And we'll probably all have one built right next to our houses as well. At least the attempt is probably coming. That's on News Nation. Here's a Not the Bee article. Got a couple of those tonight. Study. For every hour employees think they save using AI, they spend an hour, quote, bot sitting. Bot sitting. I didn't know it was called that, but I knew what it was. I've experienced it myself. There's a new term floating around the corporate world. Bot sitting. Yeah. Bot sitting occurs when employees waste their productive time trying to prompt AI to produce something usable. And it may be why companies are not seeing the returns they hoped for with their AI investments. We've reported on companies' multi-billion-dollar miscalculation with AI previously. But no one could quite explain why companies were losing so much money incorporating AI. However, a new study out of Glean's AI Work Institute may be able to shed some light on the issue. First off, both employees and their bosses are sure AI is helping them with their work output. However, that production boost hasn't translated to companies' bottom lines. This is where the bot sitting issue comes in. For every hour a worker spends getting useful output from AI, they spend roughly another hour making it usable. Of the total time workers spend interacting with AI each week, 37% goes to bot sitting, 36% to actually using the tool to produce work, and 27% to learning the tools and building agents. In other words, the employees are working diligently and they're producing things, but it's mostly useless, wasted energy. This is how the government programs work. Additionally, the study found that the more employees used AI, the less bot sitting they did. Instead, they just become comfortable with work slop, a gradual lowering of standards. Hence another reason that they want to put AI everywhere, huh? It lowers everyone's standards. 69% of employees using AI were found to have turned in AI-generated work that workers haven't verified, don't fully understand, and can't confidently stand behind. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Honestly, that last bit explains a lot of what's happening in the world right now. It does. Yeah, just an example in my world. I had a client here on Friday. We were working on a music project, and he really likes AI, and so we were trying to use AI to generate just a YouTube thumbnail is what we were doing. Ultimately, it was going to be used as a cover for a YouTube video of a music video, and well, we probably did spend an hour on it, and we never really could get it right. And I finally just said, hey, why don't we just go back to Photoshop and let me do this by hand? And we knocked it out in just a few minutes. So we basically wasted a whole hour doing really nothing. So I totally understand where they're coming from on this article, and it makes total sense. I didn't know it was called bot sitting, but now I know. Bot sitting. No thanks. Anyways, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Another Not to Be article. Let's hear what Charlie has to say. Oh yeah, Juneteenth was on Friday, so we missed it on the broadcast. If you didn't realize Juneteenth was kind of came and went, you didn't really miss anything. But here's what Charlie had to say.
Why is Juneteenth a problem? Not because, again, it's so subversive. On its face value, I have no problem with it. I think it's wonderful to say, okay, liberation of slaves, all that good stuff. No. The issue is that the entire point of it, as per postmodernists do and deconstructionists, is to subvert July 4th. That has always been the agenda. That there is a Black Independence Day and a National Independence Day, the same way that they have a black national anthem that plays before NFL games. That they have black-only dormitories and black-only math classes. It is a neo-segregationist federal holiday, is what it is. And they're so tricky, aren't they? Because they say, oh, Charlie, you against the emancipation of slaves? Of course we're not against that, because that's not what this is about. This is a summertime competitor to create multiple Independence Days to further deteriorate, erode, and destroy the celebration of our actual Independence Day.
Yeah. Well said, Charlie. Yeah. Charlie Kirk on why Juneteenth is bad. Man, we really miss Charlie Kirk. Here's a late political commentator and activist taking on Juneteenth and that phenomenon, and it's something that we should really take into consideration as we contemplate our latest holiday that leftists are pushing. Yeah. The idea is to subvert July 4th. So that leads me to this, and this is just something that I will read. I don't really have a page pulled up to show you, but this is I'd say overall pro-America show. I love my country, and I love God more, but I think it is important to note that, as many people say, America is the best house in a bad neighborhood. And I came across this. We've talked about the World Cup before, and I want to play a video for you guys I thought was really, really well done as we kind of close out the show tonight. But I wanted to start with this. It's not really a poem, but it's sort of laid out like a poem. So I'll read it, and then we'll watch the video I thought was really clever and very well done. It says, the World Cup has turned America into a Discovery Channel for the rest of the world. And they are not handling it well in the best possible way. Here is what they are discovering. Free public restrooms, Europeans pay every time. Free water at every restaurant, it just appears. Free refills, coffee, sodas, iced tea, unlimited. Free chips and salsa before you even order. Free warm bread with dinner. Ice in drinks like civilized people. Air conditioning everywhere. Not a moral debate, a fact. Parking lots attached to the actual place that you are going. Drive-thrus where the food comes to the car while you sit in it. Ranch dressing by the gallon. Tex-Mex that cannot be explained, only experienced. Dental care that actually works. Buc-ee's. There are no words for Buc-ee's. And then they found the grocery stores. 5 of them within 1 mile. Each one the size of an aircraft hangar. Burgers, steaks, brisket, ribs, pulled pork, lamb, veal, every cut of every animal ever domesticated by human civilization available in one refrigerated aisle at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. The Germans stood in the meat section for 45 minutes in silence, processing. They finally understand why we do not have trains. We have roads wide enough for cars we actually drive. Parking lots the size of small European countries. Airports in every city worth visiting. Why should we need trains? The Germans are taking ranch, meaning ranch dressing, home by the bottle. The Dutch found queso and briefly lost the ability to speak. The Japanese are photographing H-E-B like it's the Louvre. The Czechs are weeping in West Texas. Welcome to America, the greatest country on earth. That is from someone named Emmanuel Quinones. I thought it was really well done. I kind of gave it a subtitle, America, the best house in a bad neighborhood. Pretty clever, I thought. And yes, all of the people in the country visiting for the World Cup football, which we call soccer, are really in awe of the wonders of this country. So let's watch this video. This is one I came across with regard to what we were just talking about. What World Cup teams need to know about the South. So this is really more about the South.
Welcome to the countries playing in the South for the 2026 World Cup. We hope you enjoy your time in Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, and Miami. Well, Miami's not really in the South. Skip that. I figure by now you've probably got some questions about the things that you've been seeing, tasting, and suffering from. And I'd like to help make some sense of it to all the countries visiting us here in the South. So, as they say in Germany, Legen Verlass, which roughly translates to raise hell, praise Dale. Our guests from Sweden and Austria are experiencing Dallas in the summer. Yeah, and please make note that it's only June, so the longer you stay in this tournament, the hotter you're going to get. And fatter. Yeah, Texas has got what we call the 4 Bs. Brisket, Bluebell, and big old things of Dr. Pepper. And that actually leads me to another helpful hint for all the teams visiting us from around the world, but especially England and Scotland, who dabble in the imperial system like us, which means that we like to measure things with spoons. We actually have a different measurement system down here that's way easier to remember. First of all, just throw the idea of exact measurements out the window, because absolutes are for quitters. First, we've got a unit of measurement that covers everything from a molecule to a half gram of dirt. I mean, that's called a pinch. Then you move up to a good bit. After that, it's a whole mess. And finally, it's more than you can shake a stick at. Oh, and speaking of moving vegetation, y'all can thank Japan for the vine that you see eating everything around you. Don't worry. You'll be fine as long as you keep moving. So, basically, don't be England and just stand at midfield passing the ball back and forth for 70 minutes. Do something. Sorry, England, we love a good rivalry down here. For example, we've got the Iron Bowl, where Alabama fights itself. Then there's the third Saturday in October, where Alabama fights Tennessee. And finally, there's tornado season, where Alabama's trampolines fight gravity. I guess I should probably warn you about tornadoes, since most of our guests from Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde have never seen one. But just know that they are real. And you'll know one's coming when you see everyone divide into 2 groups. One that straps on a helmet and hides, and the other one that runs outside to greet it. And you'll know how bad that storm is by how much clothes the local weatherman is taking off his body. It's a very weird system, I know, but trust me, it's foolproof. Yes, and I am aware that y'all do get tornadoes in Europe. I mean, Germany gets what, like 35 a year? Texas gets 40 in May. But to be fair, Germany, the country, is smaller than Texas, the state. Although a lot of Texans think they're a country, but just don't tell them I said that. Because everything is bigger in Texas. But to a lot of y'all, everything down here is going to feel bigger. For example, did you know that Jordan is smaller than Tennessee? And Haiti is 3 times smaller than South Carolina. And Curacao can fit inside of Buc-ee's. Sorry, Buc-ee's is a gas station with 200 bathrooms and a beaver statue. Oh yeah, and critters. Yeah, we've got a lot of them. Some of them that you've never seen before unless it's in your zoo or your Pokemon deck. Yeah, got Japan's attention. First, we got this thing called a possum, although it's spelled opossum, but the O is silent because English. It's about the size of a triple meat Whataburger, and it's America's only marsupial. Oh, and it lives in trash cans and eats ticks. Yeah, I know a lot about possums. I sell a lot of possum merch. GetInPlace.com. Oh, just don't scare one because they will die. I'm just kidding. No, that's the thing they do. They play dead. It's kind of like, what do y'all call it? Flopping. Argentina knows about the possums and the armadillos because they've got those too. Yeah, except theirs roll into a little ball to protect themselves and ours jump in the air. So when they see a car coming towards them, they just jump right into the car. But, that shouldn't be a problem for y'all because you won't be driving down here. Right? Dear God, for your own safety, please say no. For example, the Dutch are in Houston and Dallas. The Dutch, whose country has 1.3 bicycles per person. Yeah, they're outnumbered by bicycles. Meanwhile, Dallas and Houston have 1.3 cars per truck. That's why the trucks are so big, to carry all those cars. Thankfully, the countries visiting Atlanta will have access to MARTA, the most used public transit system in the South. Spain should feel right at home because they have the second largest rail system in the world, second only to China. Yeah, and while Atlanta isn't nearly the size of Spain, it does have a metro area that takes up 29 counties. And MARTA serves 4 of them. So, good luck. But don't worry, there are other ways to get around Atlanta. Unfortunately, none of them work, but you do have options. Of course, y'all already knew this. It's only been 30 years since y'all were in A-Town for the Olympics? I can't remember. The important thing is that it's still the thriving city that you remember, but now literally twice as big. Everybody moved to Atlanta, and the Braves moved to Marietta. Ooh, I know, yeah, that's a lot of ground to cover. Literally. But don't worry, for your convenience, we've placed over 1,700 rest areas across the South called Waffle Houses. Each one is open 24/7, but, and I cannot stress this enough, do not go between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. without having your personal affairs in order. But if you do, just make sure you mind your manners and say please and much obliged, or as they say in Portugal, obrigado, which pretty much means the same thing because it comes from the same Latin root word. Because, for all the ways that we might be different, we surprisingly have a lot in common. For example, in Morocco, it is considered a genuine insult to turn down the offer of food from a host twice. Twice because they'll ask you the first time and you'll go, no, I'm fine, because you don't want to put them out. But then they'll offer a second time and you have to go, all right, fine, but you just a little. Sound familiar? The DRC and Atlanta have the same thing going on because they both realized a long time ago that a song's only as good as the beat you put under it. The only difference is in the Congo, they've spent centuries perfecting the rhythm. In Atlanta, just figured out a faster way is just to get Lil Jon to yell, yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't do it. Yeah, yeah. And in South Africa, they have an entire national holiday dedicated to cooking meat over an open fire. And we've turned at least a dozen holidays about something else into that. Uzbekistan has a centuries-old tradition where all the old men in town gather every day to sit around, sip something hot, and solve all the world's problems. And I'm sure they'll be glad to know that they can continue that tradition at literally any Hardee's. And of course, even fast food brings us together. I mean, the most popular chain in Japan is Kentucky Fried Chicken. They've got over 1,000 of them. Kentucky only has 100. So, Japan is better at being Kentucky than Kentucky. So, on behalf of the South, welcome to all of y'all. Japan, Spain, Morocco, Congo, every last one of you. Y'all came down here thinking everything was going to be bigger, weirder, louder, and you were mostly right. But underneath, or technically above, the armadillos, the 26-lane highways, the 200% humidity, you're going to find folks who are going to feed you before you even ask, or argue with you the right way to cook meat, and, of course, treat you like family before you finish that second plate that they stood over you and made you eat. So, as it turns out, we ain't that different after all. So let's play some soccer. Okay, well, that part is different. But we ain't gonna call football, okay, till one of y'all win an SEC championship. Good luck.
How about that? I thought that was really, really funny and really well done. You probably would get it more if you live in the South, and I do, so my apologies. If you don't live in the South, you might not have got it quite as much, but it's still funny. I mean, if you live in America especially, I'm sure you thought it was funny. Pretty good stuff. Pretty funny. Anyways, I wanted to show you guys that video, and America, the best house in a bad neighborhood. That's what I called this little segment. I felt like it was pretty neat, and it went really well with all of the soccer stuff, as we call it. Football. Breaking: Moderna's mRNA flu VAXX gets unanimous thumbs up despite the risks and the low efficacy. They just keep churning these things out, don't they? The FDA's Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, they need one of those, I guess, today voted 9-0 to recommend the approval of Moderna's mRNA flu vaccine for the 50 to 64 and 65 plus age groups. Karl Jablonowski, PhD, senior research scientist for Children's Health Defense, said the unanimous vote guarantees a lot of really good questions of harm that will have to be answered in the post-marketing period when that harm manifests in the population. So they're just going to do it anyway because harm is their middle name. So yes, Big Pharma. That's what they do, isn't it? I don't know that we need to go into that any further, but that is on childrenshealthdefense.org under the Defender section where the news is. And yeah, not a surprise, not a shocker there at all, is it? Pumping out more Moderna mRNA everything. Because that's what we do now. America spent a fortune shooting down cheap drones. Now the missile stores are bare. After burning through interceptors in the Iran war, U.S. faces a dire math problem. Enemies can build drones faster than America can build missiles. So lovely, huh? Like the Uncle Sam Pez dispenser there. Does the U.S. government have enough ammunition for all its wars and potential wars? Ask 2 different Pentagon officials and get 2 different answers. In May 2026, Acting Navy Secretary Hung Cao told Congress that we're doing a pause on sales to Taiwan in order to make sure we have the munitions that we need for the Iran war. A few days later, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth backpedaled. Hung Cao is fantastic, but I would not couple the two in any way, he told reporters, and I feel good about not only where we are, but where we are in the future production rates as well. So don't worry, they're going to have plenty of missiles to shoot down drones in the never-ending, always evolving war that they have going somewhere in the world. In this case, Iran, and wherever else. So anyway, that's a Reason.com article. Okay, vaccine impact article. I wanted to mention this one. We all need to be aware. I know some of you folks may very well be in the LA area. Is World War III about to break out? Talk of Los Angeles false flag attack increases. This is on vaccine impact. The news has picked up speed this week from the Iran war as well as the Ukraine-Russia war. And there are various commentaries and theories being published every day. As the news seems to be changing by the hour, Israel appears to have no intention of leaving Lebanon or stopping the war there. The public meetings to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOUSE, to start a ceasefire and end the war with Iran have been canceled. There continues to be speculation that Israel could be closer to implementing the Samson option. Yeah. I keep having to correct myself. It's Israel. Izrul. Yes. That's how you have to say it. If you've been saying it wrong like I have been, you got to correct yourself. Yesterday, Pepe Escobar, Larry Johnson, and this Zulkifar Ali, I guess, published a video stating that Israel was planning to assassinate members of the Iran negotiators when they arrived to sign the MOU, SE, which prompted them to sign it digitally. And Vance canceled his trip to Switzerland earlier today. I wonder if they thought they were going to take him out too. You suppose? You suppose that's why old Vance canceled? There are now renewed rumors circulating that there could be a false flag attack with massive casualties in the U.S., Israel, that would eclipse the number of Americans who died in the World Trade Tower destruction, and much of it is being fueled by the ex-poster from Larry Loomer, also known as Laura Loomer, a Trump supporter and hardcore MAGA propagandist. Yeah, she's something else for sure. Anyway, here's Larry Silverstein. The target of this false flag event has been frequently discussed lately as the second tallest building in downtown Los Angeles, U.S. Bank Tower, is what the name of it is, owned by Jewish billionaire Larry Silverstein. Yes, we mentioned this on the show. I don't know. It's been probably a couple months. Yeah, he owns the second tallest tower now in Los Angeles, the U.S. Bank Tower. Silverstein is most known for his purchase of the World Trade Center towers in New York City in 2001, just months before they blew up in what was the largest false flag event in U.S. soil through today. Silverstein and his second wife were conveniently not present in the towers that morning, as well as other famous Zionists who should have been in the towers that day, such as Howard Letnick, who has been utterly disgraced this year due to his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and his lies about the relationship. Yeah, but he's still in position there, isn't he? Including his lying under oath before Congress that he did not know Epstein very well and never visited his island. No, but it's okay when he does it. He's of the correct persuasion, you might say. So anyway, here's a little bit of info background here on Larry Silverstein. Another Larry. We have all these evil Larrys. We have, well, Larry Silverstein. We have Larry the Fink and Larry from Oracle. That guy. Larry the, what was he? He had a nickname too. I forget now what it was. Anyway, yeah, there's a background here on Silverstein, and it says, I was reading 1 Peter chapter 4 this morning in my daily Bible readings, and verse 7 really jumped out at me, where Peter wrote that the end of all things is near. We note now that he did not mean the ultimate end of the world, but the end of an era. And that was the era of the Jewish nation in the temple, which was destroyed a few years after he wrote this. Are we now coming to the end of an era in these modern times? I certainly think so. The American empire is dying, and so too maybe the Zionist belief system among the Jews and many Christians. This is a time to pray because life might be radically changing soon for many people in the world, including those of us in the United States. Turn off your TV, get off the internet, turn off your cell phones, and spend time in each day with God in prayer, asking Him for His specific will in your life as we head into this very uncertain future ahead. That is really good advice. Really good advice. It says, time to pray. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be clear-minded and self-controlled so that you can pray. 1 Peter 4:7. Okay, so we got another Larry to watch out for here. That's all we needed. But yes, he did recently purchase that building, so everyone's very concerned that they could be pulling another 9/11 style attack. Which, if that happens, then we'll know who is involved, won't we? Our greatest ally. Israel365news.com, the pierced ear. Torah ownership mark that disqualifies the red heifer. I say it does not matter. And I'll tell you why in a minute. The pierced ear, Torah's ownership mark. They have the AI picture of this guy happily piercing this guy's ear and then piercing the red heifer's ear as well, I guess, putting the tag on it. The image tells two stories side by side. On the left, the Hebrew servant stands willingly at the doorpost. Yeah, he's willingly having his ear pierced. His master pierces his ear with an awl, A-W-L. The servant smiles with joy and devotion, choosing permanent service out of love. On the right, a modern rancher kneels beside a red calf. He applies an ear tag, marking the animal as owned livestock. Both scenes depict the same ancient act, piercing the ear to assert ownership and integrate the subject into the human economic system. The visual connects directly to the Torah's requirement for the para aduma, or red heifer, an early ear tag on the calf named Temima, which means perfect, disqualifies her under the Torah's own standards. The disqualification is not a later rabbinic addition. It flows from the lexical, biological, and anthropological definitions of the written Torah itself. The birth of Temima on a Galilee dairy farm has drawn attention to the requirements for the red heifer. Reports noted her pure red coat and rapid healing from the tag. This development arrives amid broader momentum. The Sanhedrin advances its work. Training programs for priests and Levites expand. Tens of thousands of young people commit to study and readiness for services in the house of Hashem. That means they're getting ready to build the third temple, my friends. These steps mark real progress toward the day when the nation returns fully to the biblical system of purity and offerings. Temama joins this wave as a symbol of hope. Many pray she becomes the first of many qualified candidates and a mother to future red heifers that meet the very requirements. Yet a central question arises from the plain text of the Bible and the detailed rulings of the sages. Does the ear tag applied at birth already disqualify this calf from ever serving as the red heifer? The biblical standard for perfection. The Bible states the requirement without ambiguity. This is the statute of the law that the Lord has commanded, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, they bring you a red heifer, temama, meaning perfect, in which there is no no blemish, and upon which a yoke has never come." The sages understood temama to demand absolute wholeness. They applied the detailed laws of no blemish developed for other offerings to the para aduma. These standards come directly from everyday agricultural world in the land of Israel. One key benchmark involves the kershana seed from the bitter vetch plant. Multiple layers of potential disqualification now appear in the case of temama. And it says lexical definition from the Torah text. So anyway, it's just going into, is it the case that this young red heifer has now been disqualified? Is that the case because its ear was tagged right after it was born? You would have thought that they would have known that before all of that happened, but I say it doesn't matter because the actual red heifer sacrifice that needed to occur already happened last year. So it's probably a moot point anyway. But it is interesting that they're still arguing about it and still talking about the red heifer sacrifice like it hasn't already happened. So I personally think it has, and we covered that when it happened last year sometime. It was set up as we're just going to do a test, and then it came out later, within a few weeks, that test was the actual real sacrifice. They didn't need the temple to do that. They just needed the right circumstances in the right place, and they already have all that. So it appears to be a done deal, if you ask me. All right. Now we have GeoWatch for this week. Historic flooding ravages millions across the South. Devastating droughts and deadly deluges are hallmarks of geoengineering operations. Climate engineering has completely disrupted the global hydrological cycle. Lake Mead projected to sink to historic low by July. Who controls the weather? ? Engineering the sky in the vacuum of global governance. That's from earth.org. Covert weather warfare has been waged on Earth and its inhabitants for decades. How bad do conditions have to become before a majority of the population is willing to look up? The latest installment of Global Alert News is right here. And we also had one other post that we put out earlier last week, called Chemical Rain. An invisible, forever chemical rain is falling across the planet. From the report, chemicals used to replace ozone-damaging CFCs are now emerging as a major source of a widespread forever chemical, according to new research. The pollutant is now showing up everywhere, from rainwater to remote Arctic ice, and scientists expect levels to keep rising. Our skies have long since been utilized for endless climate engineering operations and nonstop chemical dispersion experiments. The controllers have carried out their agendas and objectives with total impunity. Our life-sustaining atmosphere is breaking down by the day. Try not to breathe and try not to burn up in the now DNA-damaging UV radiation. Geoengineering is weather warfare. Do you object? Anyway, there's a 90-second alert, and it's here on the page, ready to go. If you guys want to check that out, if you're not already on the email newsletter list, make sure that you jump on that list. It's easy to do. You just go right here and you click on this article, or on this link here that takes you to the correct form, geoengineeringwatch.org, and it just says email list sign up right there. Anyway, pretty easy to do, and you want to stay in touch with what's going on with the information Mr. Dane puts out. Always relevant, always very good, and breaking news as far as the weather warfare stuff going on. Yes. All right, and then the scheduled weather coming up June 27th to July 1st. We are back to the split down the middle, more or less. We have the whole east side of the U.S. frying and the west kind of below normal. So it's a flip-flop of what we've been seeing. So we have hot in the east, in the Midwest, in the south, and then cooler out west. So yeah, here's the Substack. Make sure you're on that list. Drop your email in, hit subscribe. Very easy to do. Here's the subscribe star. We have Substack and Substar. Subscribe star and Substack. But there are some different ways here you can support the show with all kinds of extra, very interesting features available on some of the different support tiers here. If you want to support what I'm doing, certainly would appreciate that. And then, of course, we do have the newest endeavor over here, which is Buy Me a Coffee. And I don't think I mentioned that, but I've mentioned Buy Me a Coffee before, but what I haven't mentioned is that those same tiers that are available on Subscribestar are also on Buy Me a Coffee. They're also here. If one wants to participate monthly, it is here. Same exact thing, same cost, same tiers. It's just a matter of, do you want Buy Me a Coffee or do you want Subscribestar? So thank you for those few people who are helping support what I'm doing. List of folks here on Buy Me a Coffee. And make sure that you're also tuned into the various and sundry other places that this show ends up. And those links are available on Linktree. And you can get there pretty easily. The QR code right above my head, right up that way, is where it is. So if you scan that, or I think the link should be in the description box underneath the video, that will take you to this page. And this has all of the Diamond Report links on it, pretty much. I think they're all on here. Anyway, blessings to you guys. Hope you have a wonderful night, rest of your evening, and good rest of the week. And we'll do it again next week, which will be what? Are we in July yet? No, it'll be the 28th. June 28th, 9 p.m. Central start time. So we'll see you guys again then. So blessings, you guys. Love you all, and hope you all have a wonderful week this week, and we'll do it again then. Talk to you later. Thanks so much.